It's time for Twit This Week in Tech, and this week, it's a wheel bearings takeover. Sam has brought his co-host from the Wheel Bearings podcast, Nicole Wakeland and Robbie Baldwin, and we have lots to talk about. Not just cars either. We're going to talk about Apple's Vision Pro headset and whether it really is the future. What's happening at Reddit? It's kind of shocking. There is some car news too, though. Tesla's Autopilot seems to be even more dangerous than Elon Musk admits. And is Elon about to take over EV charging nationwide? All of that and more coming up next on Twit.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 931, recorded Sunday, June 11th, 2023. A pork pie for your ears. This episode of This Week in Tech is brought to you by Decisions. Don't let complexity block your company's growth. Decisions' rules-based process automation software allows you to manage a complex digital landscape, build custom workflows, business rules software, modernize legacy systems, and improve customer experiences in Decisions' unified no-code platform. Visit decisions.com/twit to learn how automating anything can change everything. And by ZipRecruiter. Did you know that hiring can take up to 11 weeks on average? Do you have that time to wait? Of course not. Stop waiting and start using ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter helps you find qualified candidates for all your roles fast. And right now you could try it free at ZipRecruiter.com/twit. And by Miro. Miro is your team's online workspace to connect, collaborate, and create together. Tap into a way to map processes, systems, and plans with the whole team. And get your first 3 boards for free to start creating your best work yet at Miro.com/podcast. And by Lookout. Whether on a device or in the cloud, your business data is always on the move. Minimize risk, increase visibility, and ensure compliance with Lookout's unified platform. Visit lookout.com today. It's time for Twit This Week in Tech, the show we get together with my favorite tech journalists to talk about the week's tech news. What a week it has been, and what a week to have a takeover. This week we are being taken over by the Wheel Bearings podcast at wheelbearings.media. Now, you know Sam because Sam's on all the time. He is a principal analyst at Guidehouse Insights. He is the host of the Wheel Bearings podcast and is a regular on all of our shows. Sam, introduce your co-hosts.
Well, joining us today, Leo, is Nicole Wakeland.
Hi, Nicole.
Say hi.
Hey, Leo. How you doing?
In New Hampshire.
In New Hampshire.
All right.
Nicole's one of the co-hosts of Wheel Bearings and a freelance automotive journalist, so you can find her byline all over the place. And also is Roberto Baldwin, who the Twit audience probably already knows.
We know Roberto.
So no need for introduction.
The only reason I'm doing the takeover is because I've been trying to get Roberto back on the show for probably 10 years. And I finally figured out how. I get your cohorts to strong arm you into it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Roberto, it's great to see you. No, you're not sorry. It's fine. It's great to see you. We used to have Roberto on when he was gainfully employed, but then once you became freelance, you had to work.
Freelance, every weekends.
Yeah,
are really
your work.
The air quotes.
Yeah.
Not to mention he's got 5 cover bands.
5 cover bands.
What are your cover bands?
I have 5 bands. I have a Daft Punk thing.
Yeah, in fact, your helmet's over there on your left. If you ever want to put that on,
there's an old helmet. That's like the Mark II. It's a it's paper mache. So it's sort of collapsing upon itself. The new ones have like a urethane resin.
Ooh.
It's a whole.
You should put one on. At some point, you need to just wear it.
Okay. So there's
really
the Daft.
dusty.
There's the Daft Punk band. Yeah.
There's the Devo band. Suburban Robots.
Do you have flower pots for that?
Yeah, you can see it up on the shelf.
Do you only do bands that wear hats?
No, I don't wear a hat. That's the weird thing is I don't want.
Okay.
There is the the newest band, which is the Becky Boys.
The Becky
It is
Boys.
a Beck/Beastie Boys cover band. Because the Venn diagram of people who like Beck and the Beastie Boys is essentially a circle. And then there's the big band, the one that like everyone actually gives us money for, North American Scum, and that's the Talking Heads and or LCD Sound System cover band.
Oh my God.
Okay.
And then finally, number 5 is Drastic Cats, which is an originals band. It's a chaos band, is what me and the other person who were in it, because it's just pure chaos. And you can just look up drasticcats.com or on Bandcamp, and every song is a different genre. It's all chaos. We write and record songs in about an hour. So
Do you?
Wow.
And you're the singer in these bands. Do you play an instrument?
I play bass, guitar, drums.
Oh, you're a man of many talents.
Keyboards.
Oh,
Well, I play all those things. I'm not good at them.
play poorly. Okay.
Like I collect musicians like other people
Like
collect.
most modern bands.
Yeah. I collect like really good musicians. That's what I'm really good at. I'm really good at like collecting musicians like they're Pokemons. Like I just got to catch them all, and then I force them into my bands.
Perfect.
Forced labor.
Perfect. It's actually cool because Roberto, he's kind of like a renaissance man for our times, because you used to write for TMZ doing celebrity gossip, right?
He did not. Did you really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I was employee like number 4.
Wow.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
Leo
out
always
you.
brings it up.
I didn't mean to out you. I didn't realize it was a secret. And then you,
No, I'd heard that one before.
yeah, and you started talk on our show because you were a tech writer, but you focus now on cars, and all 3 of you drive different cars pretty much every week. What are you driving
Yes,
today,
pretty much.
Nicole?
I have a Lincoln Corsair plug-in hybrid.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you like
Fancy
it?
pants car. I do. I like plug-in hybrids. I think they're the good happy medium if you're like afraid of EVs and you don't want to have a gas car. And I like the Lincoln's all fancy. They have an adjustable seat, and there's a separate thing for each of your thighs. Like you want your left thigh to be higher than your right thigh. You can pick.
Wait a
I'm like,
minute.
who does that? Who
Each
does
thigh
that?
has its own seat.
It each has its
Well,
own
nope.
little adjustable thing. So your thigh support can be like, I want my right leg like a centimeter higher than my left leg. I play with them like this just feels weird. Put them the same.
No, nobody has a symmetrical body, so you have to have asymmetrical controls.
Yeah.
I guess, but how? Like,
I've
have
never
you
seen
ever
a car
adjusted
with
them?
separate thigh seats before.
It's like separate. Well, you need to go find yourself a Lincoln Corsair plug-in hybrid, and then you
I
can
think
play
so.
with that, Leo.
And yeah, if you're in New Hampshire and it's cold, I think a plug-in hybrid probably is a good idea, because your
Yes.
range varies with the temperature, and this way
Yeah.
you know you're not going to get stranded.
Right, and it does. Even with that, I can see it come way down as soon as it's chilly out, but it's not a big deal because there's that
Yeah.
gas engine as backup, so you don't have a panic attack.
What about you, Sam? What are you driving?
I currently have a Ford Maverick Tremor in the driveway.
That seems like the downside of being an auto journalist.
No, actually, all of us really love the Maverick. It is
Really?
like
Yeah, the
it is.
Maverick
It
is
is
great.
actually the perfect truck for most people.
Okay.
Most people do not belong in a full size pickup. You know, they want something to haul
Yeah.
some mulch every once in a while. And things
I
like
see
that.
people downtown San Francisco driving an 8-foot tall 4-wheel truck with a snorkel, and I'm thinking, dude, you're going to work and back. You're from Daly City. What do you do?
What?
It's crazy.
What if they drive into the bay by accident?
That's
You don't
true.
know.
They're covered.
You don't know
They've
their,
got
you
the
don't know their
snorkel.
lives.
That's true. So the Maverick's just a little truck if you want to just, bring some antiques
It's a
home.
little compact truck. It's got a big enough bed for most of the stuff you're ever going to want to do. It's got room in the cab for 4 people. And you can get it really ridiculously cheap. The base Maverick now starts at $22,000 for a hybrid
Wow.
that gets 40 miles per gallon.
Wow. See, that's
My next door neighbors have one. They love
it's
it.
smart.
Yeah.
It's smart. Robbie, somebody in our chat room, Igor, says that your next band should be called Thigh Support, which I think is probably
It's
true.
like all we play is Air Supply.
Yeah, Thigh Support. There you go. Now, I saved the best for last. Robbie, what are you driving?
Wait, am I the best or is the car the best?
You're the best, baby.
Yeah. I am driving a Lamborghini Huracan Technica,
Holy cow.
which is it's pretty much just like the Lincoln, Corsair.
exactly the same. There's almost no difference.
No difference.
They both have steering wheels.
They both have four wheels and
Yeah.
tires.
Do you
But
have?
does yours have thigh support?
Yeah.
That
No,
splits?
no, it doesn't. It
wow.
has sport seats that are built for someone.
What
who's
color
shorter
is
than
it?
me.
Lime green. What color is it?
It's a matte gray.
Oh,
So it's which is nice because I can hide it between my two cars in my driveway when people drive by, so they're not like, whoa, what's going on in
what the
this
hell?
house?
Are you having a
Backing
midlife
up.
crisis or what,
I
man?
mean, if you got to park your Lamborghini outside in the driveway, you definitely want something that's not going to attract too much attention.
That's the auto writer's special color.
Yeah,
Neutral gray. So while there are many car stories, and we will get to those a little bit because I got the wheel bearings folks here, I think probably there are two big stories of the week that have nothing to do with automotive technology. One is Apple's WWDC was on Monday, and they finally announced the Mac Pro. No. Well, actually, they did finally announce the Mac Pro, but nobody paid any attention.
Basically a giant case with a little Mac Mini in
Yeah,
the
it could be a Mac Mini, basically. But they announced their nerd goggles. They call it the Vision Pro. The operating system is the Vision OS. Although we had heard, all these wild trademarks that they were, including, I think everybody thought it was going to be XR OS, and it turns out in one of the
or Reality OS. I think
Reality
is
OS. One of the breakouts, actually, all the slides said XR OS, and the presenter said XR. So that must have been the internal code name. But Vision OS is the final name. And the bottom line, which you probably already know because everybody's been talking about it, is it's $3,500 and it won't be available till early next year. In other words, it's a ways off. But I would be interested in your thoughts. Nicole, why don't you kick it off? I know this isn't your normal beat, but
I know. Okay, so I look at this, and the first thing I always hear, like goggles for like going when you're skiing. They look like giant ski goggles.
they look like ski goggles. You're right.
That's what they look like, which I would never want to wear unless I was actually skiing because I feel like they'd be weird, like intrusive.
That is kind of the test. Is like, would you wear ski goggles around the house or in
Right?
public?
I don't generally. Generally, when I'm not skiing, I'm not out in the snow. I don't wear ski goggles. I mean, like, really, they're cool and nerdy, but $3,500 for fancy ski goggles is not going to be my thing.
And one thing ski goggles don't have is a wire off the back to a battery in your butt. And really,
where do they store their battery?
well, wherever you put it, you can put it anywhere you want.
You put it in your pocket, Robbie.
I don't remember that in the presentation. I don't remember that portion of the presentation at all.
And the other, the wire always goes behind. I don't know why. I guess they want you to have it back there somewhere in your hip pocket. But then the other thing that your goggles
They don't want you to
have-
get your hands tangled up in it.
Oh, that's why. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like a tail. And the other thing, and I swear to God, I think this is creepy, is these eyes in the front.
They're weird.
Deep fake eyes.
Yeah, I just don't like them. They're using lenticular screens. So when they record your eyes, or when they model your eyes, because this isn't exactly a picture of your eyes. They have cameras facing you, but it is somehow modeled. They record a variety of angles, and then depending on how you're viewing these, you'll get a different angle, up to 16 different angles of these eyes. And then the eyes do mirror whether you're blinking or whatever else you do with your eyes. They mirror that, but I don't think it's a direct image from your eyes. I think it's generated somehow. It's unclear.
Well, I think they use the internal cameras to track what where you're looking and what your expression is, and then replicate that in the screen. And using those lenticular lenses, try to make it look as if your eyes are actually back, like at the level of your face, rather than on the outer surface of the goggles.
Yeah, so there's this depth.
Because that would look
going.
even weirder.
It's weird anyway.
Yeah.
I wonder if you end up with that like weird like 50-yard or 1,000-yard stare from like the Polar Express movies.
Yeah, it's Uncanny Valley. Yeah.
Like you can't tell where the person is.
Oh, look at how big that is in the back. I didn't even catch it. It's like not even like a thin. It's this huge band in the back.
Well, that's so you don't get dents in your hair, I guess. I don't know. There's also, and they never showed it, but there is
they're trying to spread out the load.
Yes,
so
they're spreading out the
comfortable.
load. It's basically like separate
goodness.
thigh support.
Yeah, like one thigh, other thigh.
Yeah, and then and actually this would fit your thigh quite nicely. And then they never showed it. There's another strap that goes over the top, which a number of that's optional on, for instance, the Oculus Pros to relieve some of the weight. These weigh about a pound, I'm told, although Apple did not say. But that's not an insignificant amount of weight. If your ski goggles weighed a pound, you would not like them.
You would not like for your ski goggles. You want them to be as light as they possibly can be.
Yeah.
This is, there's another, I feel like it's making me think of a CPAP machine where it's like you're all strapped in.
Yeah, but you'll never snore again.
But you never snore again.
Never snore again.
Or because of the way you look, no one's ever going to be where they can hear you.
That's true.
snore.
You will be sleeping alone.
Yeah.
Forever.
A lot of divorce papers filed right after hits the market. Like, no, that's not what I signed up for. I'm sorry. I don't care better or worse. Hold on. Where's my...
Do any of you thirst for these? Is this something?
No.
No.
I don't want a hot computer on my face. I'm not a fan of hot things on my face.
Well, it's okay because there's a fan in there.
Apparently, Apple again is not revealing it, but there are openings. They talk about cooling openings. I think there has to be a fan in it, but again, no one's.
No, they've said there is definitely a fan in there.
Okay, all right.
And the fan, I guess the intakes are on the bottom of the goggles, and then
Right.
it blows the hot air out the top. The fans.
Great.
So is your hair going to be like blowing a little bit in the wind the
Yeah, a
whole time
little
you
bit,
wear
yeah.
these?
Actually,
like,
that's not a bad idea.
It'll be a nice, sexy look.
like you've wind blown. Whew.
Yeah.
So there are, Robbie needs this.
I have to wear for the Daft Punk thing. I end up wearing like a wearable monitor.
This could be
So
for
I'm
you.
wearing like goggles, like it's like that, but I don't like it. It's just that I can't see out of the helmet because it has LEDs in the front. So I can't see anything. So all I see is the computer screen for the DJ, so I can DJ.
I knew
And it's
that
not
the
fun.
tech press. Well, first of all, when they announced these, they did it at the Apple campus. Micah Sargent was there. Jason Snell, a number of our contributors. I, of course, do not get invited to Apple events, but that's okay. I didn't get to go. But when they announced it and they started talking about it, as usual, you get a lot of oohs and ahs at these Apple events. But then they mentioned the price, and let me play for you because I have audio of this. The reaction. This was somebody tweeted this.
Apple Vision Pro starts at $34.99. It will be available on Apple.
That's not what you expect from a.
Can you imagine the way Steve Jobs would have responded if he was standing on stage making that announcement and the audience did that?
Oh,
Oh gosh.
what
that
would
is
he have
not-
done? Would he have
Out.
said,
Everybody out.
"Out"?
Out.
Leave.
Get
You're all
out. I was at the event where they had to give us all covers for our phones because they were like, "You're holding it wrong." Remember the?
Oh yeah, the
iPhone?
bumpers.
Oh,
the bumpers.
The bumpers.
Yeah.
on the
That's
4S.
right.
Steve Jobs was so irritated that entire event. It was my favorite Apple event. It was in that little itty bitty theater that they used to have.
Yeah.
That was bar none my favorite Apple event I've ever been to. Anything else after that didn't matter. I didn't.
You
I
have to
didn't care. I was
understand.
the whole time I'm like giggling to myself writing my articles.
We called this antenna gate because when you held the 4S, the antenna was that metal bar around it. You could actually watch the signal disappear as you held it. Go down to zero. It would cut off your calls. And Steve Jobs and his entire family were in Kona, Hawaii, at Kona Village, vacationing when this came out. And he was so pissed off, he had to fly back and solve this problem. And you remember what his reaction was? "You're holding it wrong."
You're holding it wrong.
He was just
User
irritated.
error.
So they made a 13-cent rubber bumper that basically insulated the metal strip from your hand. That was their solution, and they gave it away for free to everybody who was stuck with this phone.
Because they used to be able to see the signal on the phone. You could put it in a diagnostic mode
Right.
and see the signal on the phone. And you could see when you held it. But what was funny is I had some people bring over some Android phones and I put those in diagnostic mode. You could do the same thing.
Really?
Yeah, all phones. Pretty much your
So
hand.
all phones
is a
did the
giant-
exact same.
Yeah.
As soon as you grabbed it, you could see the signal go down. They're like, "Oh, we're just horrible."
Apple's other
We're the
solution,
anti-cell tower.
which was not promoted quite as much, we talked about it, was they changed the algorithm that showed the bars to show more bars so that you wouldn't know that you had lost signal.
I like that fix. Great.
Yeah.
Just recalibrate the gauge.
Yeah.
And they got rid of diagnostic mode, so you couldn't look
Yeah,
at it. You
right.
can see the actual.
None of your
decibel
business. Oh, get out of there. Anyway, the tech press in general was fairly fawning over the Vision Pro when it came out, and absolutely the people who got to put them on, the special few, the proud, the several hundred journalists and YouTubers who got to put them on. But I knew there would be a certain amount of, because I've seen this before with other VR headsets. When you first wear these, they're like, wow, this is amazing. There's that walk the plank game where you can't step out on the plank because you think you're going to die, except you're standing on your carpet. But you go crazy. And then 5 minutes later, reality sets in and you never wear them again. They gather dust. And I knew that this would happen with Apple too. There was this kind of wave of rhapsodic reporting. And then now we're starting to see stories come out, like the Wired story, where Kate Knibbs, I think that's how you pronounce it, Knibbs, it could be Kate Knibbs, writes, Apple's Vision Pro isn't the future. The new mixed reality headset is an alarming misfire. Has Apple lost its innovation mojo? I am not bullish on this. I don't have any, there's no consequences to me saying that, speaking the truth here.
What's the worst they can do? Not invite you to their events?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that'll show you.
I don't understand it. I feel like almost Apple just said, well, we spent 10 years developing this and untold billions of dollars. We just have to release it. I think $3,500 probably is pretty close to the cost of making it, right? I don't think they're making money on them.
Well, yeah, I mean, given, 2 4K displays in there, plus the fans and
there's 12
two
total
processors.
Yeah, cameras. There's and there's, by the way,
you got a LiDAR sensor.
These screens on the front, which I think personally, that's the first thing. They're not going to ship with that. That's too creepy.
Can you make it not show that? Can you make the screen not?
Yeah, instead it will show. It shows a plasma. No, you can't. So you can only hide your eyes by hiding your view. So the eyes show when you can see the room, and there is a little crown, a digital crown, and you can say, I don't want to see the room, and then your eyes turn into a plasma blob. But if you're seeing the room, I think they want to show your eyes because they want people to know you're looking.
Oh,
so I don't think they're going to disable that.
Glass.
Yeah, so it's not like the Google Glass where you can't tell whether they're looking at you or they're looking at their Google Glass stuff.
Well, and the creepiest thing in the demo was when they showed the father at the birthday party wearing these, recording amazing 3D video of my kid blowing out the candles. Can you imagine wearing these with daddy's creepy eyes during the birthday party?
Yeah. Compared to somebody doing something, wearing these goggles to record some event, having a parent wearing Google Glass would have been nothing. Those are relatively unobtrusive by comparison to this. You can
and
actually
look at
see
what happened to glass.
Real eyes.
People reacted so negatively to glass, it basically killed it. Took them a while.
The press loved it. And well, not me. I didn't love it, but
I didn't love it.
I'm just like ripping it apart, like right from the beginning. Everyone's like, "You're being mean." I'm like, "No, I'm not."
We called we called the wearers of Google Glass glass holes.
Glass holes. Yeah.
I mean, that right
Vision
there.
holes.
That tells you something.
Yeah.
There's a problem.
So,
can you imagine sitting across from your lovely wife, and she's smiling at you, and staring deep into your eyes with her lenticular,
It's so creepy.
creepy eyes? No. That is, why is she wearing those?
Not.
She's talking to her husband. Why is she wearing those? Take those off, dear. I'm recording
They're
you.
the creepiest things.
Stay
Who
connected.
thought this was a good idea? Who thought this was a good idea?
VR and AR and they've been trying to make it happen. It's like Fetch. You just don't make Fetch happen. They keep trying and trying, and it has its uses. It has a very niche market, like gamers love it, but I don't think that the general public cares. I just
I was.
I don't care. I have a
think
VR headset somewhere in my office.
Yeah, so
that
do I.
someone won't take back, and I've had it for about 3 years now, and I put it on like a few months ago to like test something out for the band. I'm like, oh, this won't work for that. Never mind.
I bought every one of them. Bought them. I contributed to the Oculus Rift Kickstarter. Bought it.
They got you.
They got me. I just bought the Oculus Pro, the Quest Pro, Meta Quest Pro for I paid $1,500 for it. You can now get it for $1,000. And it's just sitting in my office on a stand. It looks nice.
Collecting dust, doing nothing.
But is it just me?
There are some.
So this is the thing I want to know: is it just me, or certainly you can come up? There are people who go on Twitter. There are people going crazy about this thing.
I think there are going crazy.
There are realistic applications, like, for example, in a design studio. The first time I tried VR goggles was actually in a Ford design studio. And walking around a virtual model of a vehicle, before you invest in building that thing, being able to see all the pieces in order, in this 3D environment actually works really well. But I think those kinds of applications are few and far between. And they're, for average people, the idea of wearing these glasses all day and trying to type and do my job in that kind of environment, it's absurd.
Yeah. When Google Glass was first announced, I talked to an AR researcher, and his first thing was, we don't even really know what these are good for beyond like industrial uses, like helping people, fix things, because you can see through the glasses. You can see, oh, put this here, put this there. I mean, it's wonderful for that. Like if you go to a car and it says, hey, you need to take this bolt, this bolt, this bolt, and this bolt out. And you're like, oh, that's great. And you take them out. But around town and I don't know.
Yeah,
the technology is still really bulky.
I think it's like a Segway. You know how Segway was going to change the entire world? We're all going to be riding these goofy little Segways everywhere, and now the only people who use them are like mall cops. I feel like there's like a limited number of applications for things.
That's a good point. That's a good point. There are some people who use Segways. A Segway to me is a good example that it was widely lauded when it was introduced. Remember, Bill Gates said it's going to change the way we design cities. I mean, people thought this. Remember Project Ginger? It was going to change everything. But then people got on them, and they're 9 feet tall, and they look pretty stupid riding them. I know, because we have two of them. And the original
thing
you do.
Oh my gosh!
And I'll trade you one Lamborghini for.
Well, wait, there's more. But wait, but I think that the dork factor was some of this, and this is why I pay attention to the creepy eyes, because I think, and it's the same thing with glass. There's a certain, if people mock you when you're using a technology, you pretty quickly put it aside. Most normal people go, I don't want to be mocked. And I think that's what happened to Segway. So we bought two of the original $7,000 Segways. And we had a lot of fun with them. The kids loved them. Our son, when he was about 12, and his other boyfriends were jousting with them. So they got, pieces of old splintered wood. and they carried it under their arm, and they Segway jousted until I caught them, and I said, "What are you doing? You're going to impale each other." We had them in the garage for a while. The batteries finally died about a year ago. It couldn't charge, wouldn't take a charge anymore. And I looked into it, and it would have cost another $3,500 each for new batteries.
What?
I just remember they were up here because they were based in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
So there was where they were in the mill buildings, these old mill buildings, and you'd be like just walking into the building to whatever business, and like zoom, 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 Segways were everywhere. And I remember thinking, I've almost been killed by these things 20 times. And I was like, look out, look out, look out. I'm like, this is not going to make my life better.
Steve Wozniak,
by accident.
20 years ago, brought Segways to the screensavers, and we had, because he was into Segway Polo, by the way.
That was a thing?
That was a
Segway
thing.
Polo?
And,
oh my goodness.
he had many of them, and we all got to play with them. But that was 20 years ago. Anyway, that was a famous example of something that has some real use and some merit. You still see them in tours around the cities all the time.
You do.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the idea that they had around Segways changing the way cities are built, that idea was actually directionally correct, but it was ahead of its time. And I think the Segway itself, in the form that they built it, was the wrong vehicle, because what we've seen in recent years is that same idea of changing the way we move around cities coming to us in the form of modern micromobility, with electric scooters, e-bikes, things like that. And, particularly during the course of the pandemic, when in the early days, when there was very little traffic, we actually saw a lot of cities use that opportunity to go in and install permanent protected bike lanes, and access lanes for bikes and scooters and so on. So they weren't on the sidewalks. And in fact, the idea of changing the way cities are built,
it's still a good
slowly
idea.
Starting to come to fruition.
Yeah.
And
I remember, Sam, you showing me some electric mobility devices designed for cities. Was that from General Motors? I can't remember.
Oh, at CES?
At CES.
Yeah, the Envies.
The Envies.
These little autonomous pods.
They were really cool.
And those were actually built on Segway platforms.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, there were two-wheelers.
Yeah.
So the Segway the idea was correct, but the e-bike is the correct form factor.
I agree with you 100%.
Exactly.
So is that what's going to happen? These Vision goggles, Vision Pro with the idea is correct, but what we're going to end up with is something nothing like this in 20 years?
Something we've seen like from BMW where it has augmented reality in the car, where it can, like the windshield is essentially augmented.
Yeah, that
reality,
makes
where you're
sense.
driving, it's like, oh, you need to
That'd
go
be
over
cool.
here, you need to go over here. I think that's the...
Yeah, and
where it
there's
ends up.
already augmented reality heads-up displays in some cars that, traditional heads-up displays display the information in a single plane that looks like it's floating over the front edge of your hood, maybe 4 feet in front of you. These AR HUDs actually are multi-plane displays. Mercedes has them in the S-Class and the EQS and some other models, and it's coming to other vehicles. You actually see the information floating at multiple distances away from you. So when you're driving down the road with navigation, it actually looks like it's overlaying the directions right on the road. Or
arrows
floating above,
and everything.
Yeah, you have an arrow floating above the intersection where you're supposed to turn.
But it doesn't look like it's reflected off the windshield. It actually looks like it's on the road.
Yeah, it looks like it's further out in the distance. So the focal distance is different, and you see different bits of information at different locations in your field of view, different distances. So,
I think that's
like I
brilliant.
said, the turning prompts look like they're floating over the intersection, and they're stuck there, over that intersection. So as you get closer, it looks like it's getting closer to you, and says, "Here's where you're supposed to turn." And I think that sort of thing, actually really works. And if you can do that, in something like you talked about, in the form of traditional eyeglasses, as opposed, so it looks like you're just wearing glasses. That I think. That's still a long ways away.
But it's interesting that you can get it today in an automobile. Is that
because it's a much larger device.
It's a big, heavy
in your
device.
Dashboard. Yeah,
Right,
it's not something you can wear on your face.
And
They still have to track your eyes in order for it to work correctly. So in the Mercedes-Benz, there's actually eye trackers in the dash. They're tracking your eyes so that it'll project the arrows and the information to tell you to go left or right or whatever.
That kind of makes more sense. That's a very good use of AR. Also, the technology to shrink that down to your spectacles I don't think it even exists yet. I mean,
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. But it does exist in cars. It's funny that they're not getting more attention for that, but Apple's getting all this attention for basically what's a computer strapped to your forehead, which is not appealing.
Because everyone's been waiting for Apple to do this.
Yeah.
It's like the Apple car. Like when the Apple car comes out, if or when it ever comes out, it's going to be a huge deal. Meanwhile, all these other automotive startups have been doing this, and traditional automakers have been doing this, and it's because Apple, the hype machine around Apple, and the fact that we've known that they've been working on it for years.
Well, plus, Apple, they created the iPod, the iPhone, the iPad, and these were all devices that had been done before. We'd had MP3 players, we had smartphones, we had tablet computers, but when Apple did it, they really executed it correctly. And so the assumption was when Apple finally did this headset, that it would be the one that finally breaks through and fixes all the problems with all the ones that came before. And I don't think that they're there yet.
No.
So
I mean, I could be wrong because I've never actually had one of these on my face.
Right.
But I remain dubious.
Yeah, I'm dubious as well. Although maybe the whole point of this, you said something interesting, Robbie, is to gather information about how it would be used and what works and what doesn't work for an Apple car, for instance. Maybe this is a stealth product, because they surely don't expect to sell many at $3,500.
No,
they couldn't. No, not that many people are going to buy into it for that price.
They had to like put it like, we have it. We've been working on it. Let's put it out. It's a niche product. We know it's a niche product because they've always been a niche product up until this point. So let's put it out there. Let's get some information about it. And maybe 10 years from now, we'll have like actual just regular glasses that have this.
Would you be interested in this? One of the things they're pushing is the idea that you can wear this and have giant screens. You don't need monitors anymore. Your computer display can be huge and spread out, like Minority Report, spread out across your field of view. Does that appeal?
No.
I already have a 35-inch monitor in front of me.
Like, monitors are super cheap. I don't. Why would I?
And you don't have to wear them on your head.
Yeah. And like, my dogs come in, my cats are here. I'm like trying to type, and all of a sudden the cat's walking on something. I'm like, what's going on? It's chaos. But no, the cat's there. You just can't see it because you got this thing on your face. Also, wearing this thing on your head for hours on end, like the Daft Punk thing. We wear these helmets for the set list is about an hour and 20 minutes, but after about 45 minutes. I'm just begging for the set to end. It's just like, it's heavy.
Do you think that's really why Daft Punk retired? Is that they just couldn't do it? They just couldn't do it anymore.
Well, they just have like a helmet on, but maybe that. I always thought Daft Punk was more like the Dread Pirate Roberts of musicians.
There's 20 different people.
They create all the music.
Right.
But then they just send some random dude. They're like, hey, go do the show.
I mean, how would you know?
Yeah.
You never know.
Just
and they're not really doing anything. They're just because they're they're DJs, right? So they don't really actually.
This dance no, they do like
actually.
Leo.
They actually do some. There was a really great live stream they did right when they said they were breaking up of them before they had their helmets, and they're actually playing all these instruments. And they're and for me, I actually have to trigger every single sound that's happening in the show, so it's not just push play.
How do you see in the thing?
Because I have that monitor on. So all I can see, literally all I can see when that stupid helmet on.
You are actually the only person I know who actually wears one of these all the time. This might be made for Roberto Baldwin.
Yeah, that's too big.
Just for you, Roberto. That's all I need.
All I need to be able to see is the monitor of my computer. I don't need to see anything else. And
so, how do you feed the? You have a camera or
HDMI?
So the computer is feeding your helmet.
Yeah, the helmet is actually it's actually a monitor. It's actually a wearable monitor, and so it has like HDMI input, HDMI into my computer. We used to have this whole thing where we were we were using a Wi-Fi network, and we were like SSHing into two different computers, and I had a mixer, and it was this whole crazy thing. And then I have a little camera like out of the mouth hole where I couldn't really see anything because the camera was so low res. It was incredibly complex. Like every time something happened, I couldn't see what was going on. And then it turns out that the monitor couldn't handle the ProRes.
I don't know who you are, but you all look like potatoes.
Yeah, they always like, so it's a dark club, and all I see is like little brown blob dancing. I'm like, well, this is no good. And then like one of my computers, my MacBook Air, my current MacBook Air, the resolution is so dense that it was too dense for the monitor. So the cursor was so tiny, I couldn't find it. So I have to move the cursor up to the top right-hand corner and then slowly move it down to trigger the next section. And I'm just like on stage and I'm freaking out. I'm just like, oh my God, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. Because you have to trigger it like at the right time, you have to keep time. If you trigger it the wrong time, it sounds weird and messes up. You trigger the wrong section. And then I would go back to my 2015 MacBook Air and it'd be fine because, the resolution density isn't as tight.
I'll have to show you how you make your mouse cursor bigger on the Mac because you can do that. And I feel really bad for you.
Well, I didn't know it until I was on stage.
Yeah.
And now I just use one computer and it has this like every time the music changes, it's a new scene and it's like 300 scenes. It's just, it's bonkers.
Is there video anywhere of the, what is it called?
I use Ableton Live.
No, but no, I mean,
or the band?
What's the band called?
Oh, robots after all.
Robots after all. Is
Yeah.
is there anywhere we can go see you?
Somewhere.
See this crazy?
Like from the audience, it looks cool, but on stage, I'm having like a low.
You're suffering.
I'm suffering.
You're paying
They
for your.
can't see your panic under the helmet.
The other guy in the band passed out at a show because he got so hot and overheated. And you know what? I didn't know.
You were in a helmet and you
I
couldn't
couldn't
see.
Because I use these in-ear monitors, so all I can hear is the music that I'm playing, and all I can see is the computer, and that's it. And I can see like right below me, right here, so I can see like my MIDI controller and everything. There it is. Yeah, there's the band.
I'm so sorry.
The poor guy's like lying on the stage and you're still like going
He
along.
just like the poor guy, like he sat down and then he just fell over, and I didn't know. And I looked at the video later, and like someone from the audience was like, "That guy fell down," and like all these people come up behind me into the DJ booth, and were helping him and taking his helmet off, and they took him off stage, and I'm still up there,
So there you have
adjusting things,
This is-
adjusting, and so people in the audience, you think either A, the show must go on, he's a trooper, or B, I'm the world's biggest jerk.
I'm just trying to find my mouse cursor. Leave me alone. I can't find it. Wow, I'm impressed by your perseverance. Well done, Roberto Baldwin. And here's a guy who pretty much has experienced the Vision Pro, and there is his
He built his own.
his unbiased review. Wow. It's a Wheel Bearings takeover. The Wheel Bearings crew is with us. It's great to have you, Nicole Wakefield, Roberto Baldwin.
You said it wrong
keep
again,
saying
Leo.
it wrong. You said it
Wakeland.
wrong. I'm going to start.
Wakeland.
I'm going to start making a different
Just
name for
change your
you.
name.
Wakey
Nicole.
Wakey. Nicole Wakey Wakey. Sorry, I know. I don't have why I have Wakefield in my
That's okay.
I
I'll
know
forgive
somebody
you.
named
Rick
Wakefield.
Wakefield.
That's why. Yeah.
Okay.
Nicole Wakeland,
Very good.
Roberto Baldwin, and of course Sam Abel Salmond. We will have more with our fabulous crew. I can see why your show is so good. You guys are great. We'll have more in just a bit, but first, a word from our sponsor. Decisions. I love the name. Decisions. In today's digital landscape, businesses are faced with an overwhelming number of tools and systems. You got to have them, right, to operate effectively, but managing all these disparate tools, ensuring they work together seamlessly, that ends up being the biggest part of the job, right? That's where Decisions is fantastic. It can change your life. Decisions is the ultimate orchestrator for IT and industry experts, providing a unified platform for businesses to manage their digital infrastructure. By automating routine tasks and customizing workflows, Decisions helps businesses reduce operational costs, improve customer service, and streamline the overall process. It's incredible. You know, these days, business relies completely on digital technology, right? But it's constantly changing. Innovations happen on the fringe. Adaptability, though, is critical to stay ahead of the game. Decisions is a no-code platform that allows both developers and business users. You don't have to be a coder, but people with the knowledge, that they're trying to encapsulate can build applications and automations. No coding involved at all. With Decisions, your team can collaborate to build and adjust workflows. You can do dynamic forms. You can do decision-making processes that fit your unique business needs. I'll give you a really good example. When COVID first started, remember the PPM loans? The government decided we're going to loan money to industry to keep those people employed, and they did it very quickly. And all of a sudden, banks were in the position to make those loans, but it was a complicated process. There's one bank used Decisions to create an app on your iPhone that allowed you, they did it within a few days of the PPM loans, that allowed you to apply for a loan. They got the lion's share PPM loans for the first few weeks because they were the first people to market with it, all because Decisions let them write that app, to write that code, write that website quickly and easily with no code at all. Decisions has a very powerful workflow engine. You can define your own rules. Of course, they've got integrations that let you connect any legacy system via an API. Otis Elevators has thousands of elevators all over the world, and they all have different systems running them. It's not just one big unified platform. They were able to use decisions to create, again, no code, a system to check every elevator in the world every single day. Couldn't have done it without decisions. A simple drag and drop visual interface designer, the person who has the knowledge domain is able to create the tool, and that is very powerful. Knowledge does this. They manage portfolios and investment activity for family accounting offices, investment firms. Complicated digital landscape with lots of inputs, lots of knowledge flowing around. With decisions, they could completely integrate. They set it up so that Knowledger could pull data from any database, communicate with every system and application in the process, and create a simplified, unified view, a pain-free solution to managing their portfolios, to streamlining operations, to improving their customer experience. That puts them ahead in the financial industry. There's so many great stories. If you go to the website, decisions.com/twit, look at some of the case studies, look at some of the people who are using decisions, you'll see what an amazing thing decisions can be. Automating these little decisions, creating these rule-based flows, frees up valuable time for your team to focus on the bigger decisions, the ones that really need your brain to solve. With decisions, you can customize workflows to automate routine tasks, to reduce operational costs, and to serve your customers better. I think these days, the complicated digital landscape really needs something like Decisions, a powerful, no-code solution that unifies business practices and makes managing your digital landscape easier than ever before. Discover the power of Decisions. Get that free demo. We're just showing you the form. You fill that out at decisions.com/twit. You can try it for yourself. In today's constantly changing digital landscape, the ability to manage all these tools, all these disparate sources of information, put them together in one simple interface is huge. You got to be able to do this. And Decisions no-code automation software really simplifies the complexity of managing multiple systems, which means you can unify your operations, you can reduce your operational costs, you could drive company growth. To learn more about Decisions and their no-code automation platform, it's really mind-boggling. Claim your free demo at decisions.com/twit. Again, Decisions, just like the word decisions, you got a lot of them to make. This is an easy one. Decisions.com/twit. We thank them so much for their support. This Week in Tech and our wheel bearings takeover. The other big story, I said there were two really big stories this week. The other one I think affects us all, and this is what's happening at Reddit. I imagine you pay attention to this. I'm a big Reddit user. It all started when Reddit decided, first of all, it really all started. The truth is, it really all started when Reddit decided to go public, to do an IPO. Reddit was purchased by Condé Nast. They spun it out as a standalone company, but they still are the majority holder. They decided to have an IPO. And of course, the problem is Reddit's never made any money. It's only lost money. So before you do an IPO, you want to figure out a way, how can we show people that we are going to make a nice, tidy profit? Well, the first thing you do is you look over at Elon Musk. What's he doing over at Twitter? Maybe not the best idea, but anyway, that's what they did. And they said, oh, look what Elon did. He started charging for the API. Started charging a lot for the API. Reddit announced that all third-party apps, anything that integrated with Reddit that wasn't company property, would pay these fees. The battle began when the creator of Apollo, which is an excellent iOS third-party app for Reddit. It's the one I use on my iPhone and iPad. I love Apollo. Christian Selig posted, hey, I've talked to Reddit about this API, and based on my number of users, it's going to cost me $20 million a year to continue to run Apollo. He's since announced that June 30th, Apollo goes away. It's gone.
What? He doesn't want to pay $20 million a year?
Yeah. How? What? What kind of fool are you?
Come on. It's only $20 million.
Reddit is fun. RIF also going away. A number of third-party apps have decided to go away. A number of subreddits, the Reddit communities, have announced they are going dark. Starting tomorrow, a little boycott. One, iPhone says we're going dark forever. Then CEO Steve Huffman says, let's have an AMA. I can solve this. Doesn't answer a lot of questions. I think the last time I saw his karma was down below 100,000. It's as bad as you can get. The moderators of /R videos wrote that Huffman's AMA performance was a collage of inappropriate responses.
Goodness.
He also kind of implied that Selig, the creator of Apollo, was lying. Selig said, just turns out I live in Canada, a one-party country. I recorded all our conversations, Steve, and he posted them and showed that, in fact, Huffman was misrepresenting the conversation completely. Huffman, at that point in the AMA, said, well, we're just not going to do business with this Apollo guy. There is a nasty battle brewing, and I wonder how this is going to affect Reddit, because I tell you what, I can get away with, I can lose Twitter. Not happy about it, but I can lose Twitter. I don't want to lose Reddit. And it looks like it's almost as if users have finally realized, hey, you know what? We have the power here. What do you think, Sam?
Obviously, Reddit does need to make money. There is a cost associated with providing these APIs, just as Twitter and every other company that does APIs, like Google and Microsoft and Facebook and everybody else. There's a cost associated with that, and it's not unreasonable to charge some amount of money to cover those costs. It's the way business works. I don't know, Reddit's financings. I don't know how much it actually would cost them to provide these APIs. But I'm guessing that it's a lot less than $20 million a year, for at least, for the amount of hits, that they would get from somebody like Apollo. So, like I said, I don't know what Reddit's financial, what their costs are. But I think, if there were a reasonable cost for access to those APIs, I think, that would be perfectly fair. It's, it's legitimate. And, if you're building your business on top of somebody else's platform, it's not unreasonable to expect to be paid or to expect to pay some amount for access to that platform. It's just a question of fairness. How much is actually fair based on the real cost and what, what people are willing, what your downstream customers are willing to pay.
Yeah, my initial, when Reddit announced this, my initial reaction is, well, at least they gave you notice. Twitter just pulled the plug.
Yeah, very true.
And one day everything just stopped working.
And then they said, what are you talking about? And then they said, oh no, these third-party apps have broken our rules. That's it. They broke our rules. And then, the creator of Tapbot said, what are you talking about? We've been doing this for 15 years. What rules do we break? And then Reddit said, these rules, the ones we just wrote. And I mean, not Reddit, Twitter said, these rules, the ones we just wrote. It was just it was terribly handled, right? And so I thought, Reddit, at least they announced it. They gave you time. You're right, Sam. They have a right to make money on this if they're losing money. And others, third parties, are making money. Share in the proceeds. Of course, 20 million's a little. That's, I'm sure, more than Apollo makes.
Seems a bit disingenuous that it cost them $20 million to host, to have these APIs going for this one app. I'm like, I think you would have collapsed years ago if that was the case.
Yeah,
I think that was Christian's point. Is look, I understand. I'm willing to give you some of my money, but it's only you're asking for much more than it's costing you. And if it, and this is the thing that he then said, look, if you say that I'm costing you $20 million, why don't you buy Apollo? I'll sell it to you for 10 and you're going to make money. You're going to make money.
Good for him.
And then,
my
they
guess
said
is,
no.
My guess is that, Reddit doesn't see a whole lot of potential revenue streams. Yeah, and they've got a lot of costs across a lot of different things that they can't necessarily directly recover revenue on that. And so they look at the APIs and say, well, that's one place where we can pull in some money. Let's use that to cover the cost of all this other stuff that we have to do. And, so anybody using those APIs is getting disproportionately hit by those costs.
Well, and remember, if you're using a third-party app, you may not be seeing the ads that Reddit posts on. And Reddit, by the way, has apps They're not very good. That's why people use the third-party apps. And, of course, they have a website where you would see the ads, or you can, as I do, pay for Reddit so that I don't see the ads. But I guess just like the Twitter third-party apps, Reddit's feeling like, well, you're hiding our ads, so you're costing us money and you're not letting us recoup that money. That's not.
I feel like there could have been a resolution that included ad share revenue. Or ad revenue sharing. Between the applications and Reddit. I mean, there's a lot of ways that Reddit could have figured out how to do this. But instead, they just went like full hammer, like, well, just like charged for APIs, because we saw that worked out so well for Twitter.
It's such a weird choice. Like, even if they do that, like, isn't somewhere there's some bean counter who's like, well, if we charge X and the break even, we'll lose these guys if we go this high, and we'll keep these guys if we go this low. Like, you feel like somebody should have crunched some numbers back there and said, $20 million is going to be unreasonable. We will make absolutely nothing on that. Like, it feels like did they forget to check with an accounting guy?
That's a good point.
This?
You priced it so high, you lost the sale, in effect.
Right.
That's a very good point. Tomorrow, according to the BBC, 3,500 subreddits will go dark. Most for 2 days, although, as I said, r/iPhone and r/music, two of the biggest subreddits, are going to go dark, they say, forever. And I think there's going to be some people that leave Reddit. The problem is there is really no good alternative. It's not like Twitter where there are lots of places you could go. There is a Fediverse.
Dig. Oh, no, never mind.
Dig. Good dig.
Never. Actually, Reddit copied Dig, didn't it?
Yeah.
I think Discord is a place that a lot of people are going to start ending up for some of these very niche communities, because you can just start a Discord server and you can have people on there. And then if, you're on Discord and you want a better experience, you can pay a little bit more to get Nitro, or you can pay, so you have enough people on your community here paying for Nitro, and then you're paying a little extra so you can do more things with your community.
Yeah, Discord seems to have figured out a way to make money doing this, right?
Yeah.
Actually, that's what iPhone's doing. If they say, if you go to the r/iPhone, they'll say, join our Discord, and here it is, 12,000 members now, 1,687 people actually actively online. So maybe they have found an alternative. But for me, I'm a Reddit lurker. I confess I don't contribute as much as I ought to. I've done AMAs and stuff, but mostly I'm a read-only Reddit user. That's a big loss to lose the content on Reddit. And
it is.
And frankly, Reddit is so useful that a lot of people, instead of searching Google, they search reddit.com for answers to questions like, what's the best car, right? What's the best EV? Yeah. It's a much better place to search than Google.
Not as good as wheel bearings, though.
Best place to be go to wheel bearings, obviously.
You just hassle one of us on the internet, and we'll tell you.
Exactly.
That's what I do. I ask Sam.
Give us a good old hassling.
I can't buy it till I talk to my expert here, Sam. I think I'm kind of mourning the loss of Twitter. I know you guys still use it, but I feel like Twitter has turned into something that it wasn't.
I don't use it anymore.
You stopped?
I'm on it because I have friends who are still on it, and they refuse to move to Mastodon or Blue Sky or whatever the other 50 things that are out there right now.
I have a lot of friends who are still on it. Same thing, so I haven't left.
But it's never been good for traffic. Ever. It's never, if you've ever worked at any website and you've known anything about the analytics of that website, you know that Twitter traffic to your site is nothing. It's really nothing. It's mostly just a place where everyone just goes and hangs out and like, hey, look at this thing, and 5 people look at it.
There is a Fediverse version of Reddit named Lemmy, of all things. I don't know if it's named after Lemmy.
Like the bass player?
I don't know if it's named
Motorhead?
Yeah, I don't know if it's named after Motorhead's Lemmy or what. I'm on so it's federated. This is the one I'm on, Lemmy.world, which is the biggest instance right now. It's like a few weeks old, and they have, if you go to the communities, they have they're slowly, communities are their subreddits, basically. They're slowly creating a bunch of subreddits, but it's nowhere near the volume of traffic. And ironically, because this all started because third-party apps didn't want to pay the API, there are, as far as I know, no Lemmy third-party iOS or Android apps. So there's no mobile apps. So I don't know if Lemmy is going to be a reasonable alternative. I just don't know. Yeah. I don't think there's anywhere like Reddit in the world.
There's
Not
a wealth
really.
of knowledge on there that's sadly going to be either decimated or, we're going to have, it's going to disappear in 5-10 years because they've blown it over Reddit because they keep driving people away and then they just delete everything, or it's, our people aren't going to be contributing to it anymore. So all the information, any new information is going to be contributed to all these other sites. And so you sort of lose that one central spot where you can find out about, who played the dog in Gremlins, or how do I hard reset an iPhone 11, or, whatever people are looking for on Reddit.
And that's sort of the thing. It's like trying to figure out what it's going to be. If like there was one clear, like, well, instead of Reddit here, but there's not. You have no idea what's going to take over for it. So if there's a bunch of little things that pop up, like Lemmy and other things that are all sort of substitute Reddits, in the time it takes to figure out which one's going to win, you've got your information scattered all over the place.
I think the ownership is thinking, well, this too shall pass. There have been numerous revolts on Reddit in the past. But I also think there's a lesson to be learned from Twitter, that users are starting to understand that they're what brings the value to these social platforms. You're the content. You're creating why these things are worth anything.
Right. It's you're the reason why Twitter is good. It's not because Twitter was ever run really well. It's never been run well. It's just run horribly. But the only reason Twitter exists and Twitter has thrived is because of the people who are on Twitter, not because of the corporate overlords.
Exactly. And it's the same thing for Reddit. I wonder if it's just, there are people saying, I'm going to delete all my content and I'm leaving. I will never post again. There are at least 2 major subreddits who are saying we're closing, we're gone. I hope this isn't it feels a little, I can't decide. Is it a temper tantrum by the users? Are they feeling empowered by the social media spring? And are they revolting? And maybe they're going to break something irreparably that never will be recreated? Should we just put up with this? Honestly, it's sad for Christian and other third-party app developers, but is that a good enough reason to abandon Reddit? Something of such value?
Is it trying to make things, is that the sacrifice sort of that needs to be done for the greater good? Like, do you need to sacrifice now and get rid of some of these big things that are leaving Reddit? They're saying that's it, we're shutting down, we're done, so that whatever comes next doesn't have this situation?
I feel like it's a little, I don't want to say this, but I feel like it's a little childish on the part of Redditors who are saying, well, darn it, that's it, I'm out of here. Look, I don't think Steve Huffman's doing the right thing by any means, or the Reddit owners are doing the right thing. They have the right to do that. What
other recourse do you have to making, as a community member, to making your voice heard?
Right.
If these third-party apps make the Reddit experience so much better, and Reddit is effectively killing off those apps, and they are worsening your user experience on that site, on that platform, how well, aside from saying I'm going to leave or we're going to shut down the subreddit, what other means do you can send a tweet to Steve Huffman or send him an email and complain?
No, you're right.
Yeah.
But I also have to say,
the only recourse that we have.
Huffman is acting like, I don't care what you do. This is happening. He's not showing any flexibility. I thought initially, once he sees this reaction, he's going to back down. They're going to adjust the pricing. They're going to do something to keep Apollo and Riff and all the apps going. Somebody's saying in our IRC, and it's really true, that if you try to use Reddit on mobile, and you have to use a third-party app because the Reddit apps are terrible.
It's horrible.
Yeah, on the web, Reddit's all right, but
you're like, no.
Yeah, I won't. Yeah, Apollo is so much better. I use Joey on Android. It's so much better than the native Reddit apps, which are really terrible. But I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose Reddit. I think this is a huge loss to the internet.
Do you think maybe as we're recording this and as this is all happening, that behind the scenes someone's saying, "Wait, we can't let this happen.
I hope
we
so.
got to take some changes."
That's what I thought was going to happen.
Conversations happening.
Yeah. That's seriously what I thought was going to happen. That's what I said earlier this week. I said, well, with this kind of action from its users, Reddit's got to back down. But I see no signs of that. And the AMA
maybe Monday morning.
Maybe Monday.
Monday, everything will change.
Oh,
They'll come back. It's like,
Is Nicole the optimist of the wheel bearings crowd? I think so.
Maybe I'm trying. I don't want to see Reddit disappear. I'm going to try and be optimistic.
It's going to be all right.
The world's going to persevere. It's going to be okay.
Is
guys.
it? It's going to be all right. Okay.
It's going to be okay, Leo.
Thank you.
Somebody's got to counteract the cranky old guys.
Yeah. I mean, it's sometimes people just buy things and they don't know how to run them. Like a lot of places that have bought publications. It's just, I don't understand how these businesses work, so I'm just going to lay everyone off and get, I don't know, AI to write things. You're like, oh no, that's not how. Okay. You've just destroyed 20, decades of reputation. But sure, you saved, $500,000 last year. Good job.
I do understand Christian's point of view. I think he's being a little cranky about it, but I understand his point of view. There's no way he can run that app. I don't know how much he makes, but I doubt it's $20 million a year. There's no way he can continue, so he has to close it down.
Yeah,
and I think it's on Reddit to save it.
They might. Positivity, Leo. They might be right now trying to figure out they've created a disaster.
Yeah, they've
created a mess. They're killing Reddit. How do you save it? You have to backtrack on some of this, and that's really the only way to save a little bit of it. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem.
Is the CEO more interested in saving Reddit or saving face? That's where you really come.
That's a good point.
A lot of CEOs are very much like, I can't be the guy who was brought down by the guy who makes that one app.
Or you the guy who's going to bring down all of Reddit because you wouldn't change what you're doing, which is worse.
Well, that's the thing is, as a CEO, you just get another job. They pays you a lot of money.
Well, the interesting thing about Steve Huffman is
they lose their jobs.
He's one of the original founders. He and Alexis Ohanian founded Reddit. Steve wrote the original code. He wrote it in Common Lisp. I've interviewed him and Alexis in the past on Triangulation. So I have to think Steve has some deep-rooted love for the platform he created. So I can't imagine he wants it to go away. Now, he, of course, has a board, and he has, Condé Nast breathing down his throat and other shareholders. So he may not be free to do whatever he wants. Christian Selig says he has 50,000 subscribers to Apollo. So he would have to charge them a lot of money
to make up $20 million.
to make $20 million. It's not like he's got that kind of income.
It's only $400 a year.
Yeah,
person.
It's only $400 a year. We're both doing math. Hold on,
I know that's usually going to take out and see how much.
It just got really quiet while everyone was using their calculator.
They were all mathing.
I mean, if you can pay $400 for the information, you can pay $400 for Reddit, right?
Yeah.
Come on. It's up to you, users. Pony up.
I think Reddit's got to give on this. I pray that Reddit gives. I would say users stop being so cranky, but it's too late. Somebody in the Discord
happened.
Somebody in the Discord says once you cut off your nose to spite your face, it's kind of hard to put it back.
Yeah.
And but I don't think that either Steve or Christian can pray that the Redditors will solve this. So it's up to you, Steve. Please. Fix this. You can still make money. I understand why you need to make money. Absolutely. But you can't make that much money. and by the way, you're going to kill the goose that laid. Make a little less. You're not going to make it. You nailed it, Nicole. By charging so much more, they're going to actually kill the product. They're going to lose everything.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I don't know, figure out another way to make money. How about that? How about use your brain?
Well, they have advertising.
How about don't just well, Elon Musk did it. That's not a great. No.
This is, by the way, I have to say, this is one side effect of Elon's. What do you call what happened to Twitter?
No one knows.
Elon's
no one knows.
One side effect.
I think decimation is a good description.
Is that executives are looking what Elon's doing, and some of them are emulating him. Saying, we can make people come back to work. Look, Elon did it. We don't have to pay rent. Look, Elon doesn't. I think this has
You don't have
caused
to pay our Google Cloud bills.
Yeah, this has caused a lot of bad behavior among CEOs.
They all think they're Steve Jobs, but none of them are Steve Jobs. Like, I can get kind of a jerk and get people to do things. I'm like, yeah, but you're not smart.
Let me take a little break.
Find out the hard way.
Let's talk about Tesla. Since you guys, I mean, you cover it. Let's talk about Tesla. Let's talk. There's actually some Tesla news, quite a bit of it, when we come back with our wheel bearings takeover on This Week in Tech. We're finally going to talk about cars. How about that?
Woohoo!
Woohoo! But first, a word from ZipRecruiter. Let's talk about jobs. If you're a business owner, Lisa and I have this small business called Twit. You know, it is hard when somebody leaves or you have jobs you need to fill. On average, it could take 11 weeks to hire for an open position. That's 11 weeks where you're working double time, filling the hole that's left behind by the empty position, but also doing all the work it takes to hire somebody to fill it. That's 2.5 months down the tubes. Do you have that time? If you're listening, I've got some advice to you. Do what we do. Stop waiting and start using ZipRecruiter. I have to tell you, it's always hard when an employee says, you know, I got another job, or I'm going to go back to school or whatever. We hate that. We love our employees, but they've got a life to live, and now we've got a job to fill. What Lisa does is go to ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter can help you find qualified candidates for whatever role you have fast. It's not just for podcasters, believe me. And right now, you can try it for free if you want. ZipRecruiter.com/twit. Usually it's breakfast. Lisa says, all right, well, I got to fill this job. Most recently, Ashley in our continuity department decided to get a job closer to home so she didn't have such a long commute. Good for her. But that meant we've got an empty seat in our continuity department. We've really got to fill it. Lisa posted on ZipRecruiter that morning for breakfast. Before lunch, in fact, within an hour or two, I'm worried because I'm going, oh, this means more work for all of us. Lisa says, oh, look, here's another great candidate. We had 3 or 4 great candidates before lunch. How does ZipRecruiter do it? Well, they use powerful matching technology. They have more than 1 million current resumes. People come to ZipRecruiter looking for work. They will go through those resumes and find the most qualified people for that role. They know what you're looking for. They say, oh, look, here's 3 people that fit this role perfectly. Now, they don't invite them to apply. They send them to you, and you can look at them, check them out. And if you like 1 or 2, you can invite them to apply with 1 click. There's just a button that says, click, ask this person to apply. And I got to tell you, when you ask somebody to apply for a job, they respond quickly. They're so flattered. They go to the interview. They go through the process. That's a great way to start a relationship with a new employee. It works so well. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a qualified candidate within the first day. That's been our experience. That's why we use ZipRecruiter. That's how we got Viva. It was great because we had 3 or 4 people to choose from. We interviewed them. The nice thing about ZipRecruiter, you might say, well, I don't know. I don't want hundreds of people applying for my job. I just need that one. Don't worry. They all go into the ZipRecruiter interface. They reformat the resumes so you can scan them quickly. They give you screening questions, yes, no, true, false, multiple choice, even essay questions that make it very easy to screen out people who just, don't have the qualifications. They allow you to put little tags on there like remote work okay or offering training. That helps bring your listing to the top for a lot of people. And then you can quickly go through them. You don't get emails. You don't get phone calls. It all goes in the ZipRecruiter interface and hire the right one fast. It really is a system that works so well. We've been very happy with it. Speed up your hiring process with ZipRecruiter. 3.8 million businesses have come to ZipRecruiter for their hiring needs, just like us. Try it for free when you go to ZipRecruiter.com/twit. ZipRecruiter.com/TWIT. Try it the next time you need to do some hiring. You will be blown away. It is the smartest way to hire. I will vouch for that. ZipRecruiter.com/twit. We thank them so much for their support of This Week in Tech. I mentioned to Sam earlier, I think I actually told all of you, I have the Mach-E with Blue Cruise. So it's hands off. Only in certain areas it goes blue, and I don't have to have my hands on the wheel. I really like that. I mentioned earlier that I put down a deposit to pre-order the new BMW i5, which comes out later this year. They say on that, you got that on, and if you just look at the side mirrors, it'll change lanes for you. And I thought, well, I'm not going to turn that on. That's what a terrible idea. I remember.
What could go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? I think what they say is it'll only change lanes if there's nobody behind you and you're being slowed down by traffic in front. Like it's
currently, if you have to tap the turn signal stalk,
right,
up, left or right, and then the sensors will check, and if the adjacent lane in the direction you pointed is clear, then it will execute the lane change. Now it's doing that, when you look at the mirror, and I'm not sure all the details of exactly.
Yeah, we don't. I'll tell you when I get it. I'll let you know.
Yeah,
there's got to be like a time, like you can't just be like glancing. You're like, whoa!
All of a sudden you've changed lanes. I don't get it. Like if you're checking behind you, the car's going back and forth, left lane, right lane.
Don't be scanning your mirrors in this car.
Because I scan my mirrors all the time as I'm driving.
Right. Yes,
it seems like a bad idea. Anyway, we'll see. I did have the change lanes when you do the blinker on the Model X when I had a Tesla, and it was a much more aggressive than I was. It's supposed to wait till you have clear. It would change lanes in front of a car that was a lot closer than I would have changed lanes. Maybe it was safe.
Maybe you're just nervous. Maybe you're just really
I'm just
tentative
a
driver.
Scary. I'm just a scared driver.
The Mach-E has that now. If you have the version 1.2 of Blue Cruise, it'll do that when you tap the turn signal stalk, and it's pretty conservative. I was just driving a Mach-E over the past week to test that new version of Blue Cruise, and it is. And the same thing goes for the new Nissan Ariya and Super Cruise. They're all fairly conservative. They're not going to try and squeeze into a little gap in the traffic. They'll wait until it's really genuinely clear.
I bring this up because the Washington Post did a little data digging and came up with kind of a scary headline. 17 fatalities, 736 crashes, the shocking toll of Tesla's Autopilot. They say Autopilot's been involved in far more crashes than previously reported. Now, they did that by digging into the NHTSA's data. What do you think of this story? Is this guess, is it reliable? And then is that a large number? I guess I should ask.
Yeah, it is reliable because what they're doing, was it last year or the year before, the NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, issued a standing general order for all automakers and all companies developing automated driving systems. Any crash that occurs while the system is either active, or if it's been active within 30 seconds prior to the crash at any point in that phase. Because one of the things that we've seen now that this is now that this data is available, is that a lot of the Tesla crashes happen shortly after Autopilot decides to deactivate for whatever reason, and the driver has not realized it. And
that's
gets
interesting.
Into a crash, and they thought it was active, and it wasn't.
Right. So that's interesting. Or you could deactivate it. I mean, all of these systems, if it's starting to steer into a wall, you can take the wheel, but maybe it's too late in this process.
Hit the brakes.
Yeah,
there's a lot of things that can
that's
happen.
contributory to a crash as well. But you're saying
if someone grabs the wheel of your car and points you towards a towards
that's
a wall,
contributory.
and you go to turn at the last minute.
Yeah. It's their
not
fault.
Your fault. It's not your fault you hit the wall.
Right. Yeah. But you're saying that's interesting. You're saying that Tesla's consciously disabling automatically, or what?
I mean, all of these systems have
they will disable
when and where they can function.
Right.
So there are situations where the systems just can't function. Like, I'm sure if you've used Blue Cruise, you've noticed, that there are times when the system will ask you to put your hands back on the wheel.
Which is fine.
If you're going down the highway and it hits a curve that it doesn't think it can handle, it'll ask you to put your hands back on the wheel.
Here in California, lines sometimes weirdly just disappear. And there's no lines. And so then the car says, I think you better take over because I don't know where I am. That's fine.
But the key thing is that the vehicle has to make it really clear to the driver. Hey, I need you to put your hands back on the wheel and take control now.
Yeah, the Ford beeps loudly at me.
Yeah, and this is one of the issues that, with Tesla, is it's not always obvious, when, with their HMI, their human machine interface, when the driver is actually supposed to take control, or that it's changing modes. And so a lot of drivers get confused because, they think they're in one mode when the vehicle has actually transitioned and they haven't taken back control yet.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, some of this might be human error. Like, okay, you were driving along, and then the Tesla said, well, I can't keep driving, so it's your turn, take over. And you ignore that, or you don't notice, and it plows into something. That's kind of more your fault, isn't it?
Well,
It's an HMI issue. It's like, if you don't know, like if they're not, like one of the things that's great about Super Cruise, Mercedes, and BMW is that on the steering wheel there are lights that tell you what mode you're in. So it reduces mode confusion. If you don't have any sort of like very just blatant warning that tells you, hey, you're not in this mode anymore, you are in charge, then it's whose fault is it? Is it Tesla's fault because they just built a bad system, or is it your fault because you didn't notice until it's too late?
How does the Tesla tell you?
Again, it's like the guy who grabs the wheel of your car and steers you towards the wall, and then suddenly it turns off and you have to grab the last minute and turn. Is it your fault that you ran into the wall because you didn't realize?
In that case, no, pretty clearly. How does the Tesla? I don't even remember. How does it warn you? I think it buzzes at you and bleeps. I remember at one point my Tesla said, I'm not gonna drive anymore. You're not paying attention, and turned off. And I couldn't continue to use Autopilot until I started a new ride.
Yeah, and especially on the Model 3 and the Model Y, which are, that's the vast majority of their volume. Those vehicles don't have an instrument cluster in front of you. They only have that center screen.
Oh.
And the kind of the left-hand strip of that screen is where they have control information. The rest of it is maps and audio interface and things like that. And when I went for a drive in a friend's Model 3 with their full self-driving beta to try that out, it had, all it showed, there was a little icon of a steering wheel with hands, I think, in the top left-hand corner. So it was kind of off in my peripheral vision, but it wasn't particularly obvious when it wanted you to take control. And I'm pretty sure it didn't make any sounds. It might have made a slight sound, but it was not at all obvious. And this has been one of my complaints. If you're going to have a system where, any sort of automated system where you expect a human to supervise, first of all, that's I think a fundamentally problematic idea, because humans are terrible at supervising automation.
Especially when you call it autopilot. That implies.
Right. And if it works most of the time, you are going to get complacent. That is a known reality of the way humans behave, which is why, as Robbie mentioned, Tesla or GM and BMW and Mercedes and others use, very obvious interface devices like a light bar in the steering wheel, or Nissan with their cluster and heads-up display that completely changes the color scheme. There's changing modes. Though you need, as an engineer, it's your responsibility to anticipate the way things could go wrong and do everything reasonable, to mitigate that, to mitigate the consequences of that, to try to avoid anything bad happening when things inevitably do go wrong.
I remember
this is where I think Tesla has done it wrong.
I remember a couple of years ago when you took me for a ride in that Cadillac, what is it, the CT6, which had a camera. This was the first experience I had of this. My Ford now has this, monitoring my eyes, and you made me. It wasn't easy. You said, don't look at the road. I said, I have to look at the road. It's driving. He said, no, don't look at the road. So I went like this. I put my hands in front of my eyes, but I peeked. And it shook the seat. It buzzed. It was like, wake up, wake up, wake up. It was very aggressive. And it ramped up, and it got more and more aggressive as I continued to peek through my eyes. That was good. That was a system that really did make me pay attention. No question about it.
Well, I think part of the challenge too, though, there are so many, there's so many things that your car now warns you about that you don't always know what it's beeping, dinging, like what you hear it. And you're like, what does that tone mean? What is it?
There's a mystery beep in my Hyundai. I have no idea what it does. Sometimes I just drive it all, boom. I'm like, I don't know what that is. Is that a warning?
You don't understand.
It's a machine that goes ping.
It's like I don't know what that beep is for. Literally, my job is to know.
And you don't know.
My Ford does that when the tailgate goes up. Half the time it beeps twice for some reason. I don't know why.
You don't know why. Like, that's the thing. There's so many beeps and bells and whistles and whatever. You're like, and you look at your car, you're thinking, I think I'm doing everything right. I'm in my lane. I'm doing the speed limit. No one's about to hit me that I witnessed. Why are you beeping at me?
What's happening?
I think there's a little confusion. Yeah,
is there a murderer in the back seat?
Right.
Like, what are you telling me?
What am I missing?
It's like trying to talk to Lassie, but Lassie's really bad at communicating.
And like they beep when you just turn. Like, I hate it. You turn on a car and you're in a parking space. You haven't done anything and it's beeping at you. Then you put it in reverse. You're like, I'm not even going forward. Why are you beeping at me that there's something too close to my front bumper? I'm literally in reverse going the other direction. The beeping is too much.
So it shouldn't be a surprise that we ignore our cars. Elon, according to the Washington Post, says Tesla CEO Elon Musk has said cars operating in autopilot mode are safer than those piloted solely by human drivers, citing crash rates when the modes of driving are compared.
So earlier today, when we recorded the new episode of Wheel Bearings, we talked about a story that came out the other day. Money.com, Money Magazine, did a review of Tesla auto insurance. I don't know if you know, but a couple of years ago, Tesla actually started selling their own auto insurance. They're now in 12 states because a lot of insurance companies were charging Tesla owners more for insurance than for other vehicles. And that's because their cars are more expensive to repair. And also that they had more claims. But one of the interesting details about the Tesla auto insurance, because the vehicles are connected, they have access to all the data about how you drive. Most auto insurance, every 6 months you get a bill to pay for your insurance. And, at 6 months, it may adjust it up or down, usually only up, but sometimes it goes down.
Never goes down. You're lying, Sam.
What Tesla does is they have dynamic pricing so that they are constantly monitoring your driving behavior and calculating a safety score based on how hard you accelerate and brake and steer and so on. And if your safety score goes down, the next month your insurance bill will go up, and vice versa. If your score goes up, your insurance premium goes down. One of the factors that they include is actually your use of autopilot. If you use autopilot, you will pay more for Tesla insurance.
So it can only be it's supposed to be safer, yet if you have it, Tesla's own insurance charges you more for it.
So clearly they don't believe their own rhetoric.
That's hysterical.
Or their insurance company doesn't.
Well, I remember
they are their insurance company.
Yeah.
When I first got a Model X, I called our insurance. I think it was Geico. And they said, oh. And they charged us a lot more. I don't know if because it was an expensive car or because of the autopilot, but I have a feeling it was the autopilot. So this is what the Washington Post's analysis said. Tesla's 17 fatal crashes reveal distinct patterns, the Post found. 4 involved a motorcycle. That's a quarter of them. Another involved an emergency vehicle. Ooh. Meanwhile, some of Musk's decisions, such as widely expanding the availability of the features and we've talked about this a little bit, Sam, stripping the vehicles of radar sensors. He thinks that all you really need is cameras. You don't need LiDAR or radar, appear to have contributed to the reported uptick in incidents, according to experts who spoke with the Post. Tesla and Elon did not respond to a request for...
Oh, by the way,
Shock.
Tesla is soon going to be adding a radar sensor back into the cars, but it's a different, better radar
a tacit admission that maybe that was the wrong thing to do. Whoops. NHTSA said a report of a crash involving driver assistance does not of itself imply that technology was the cause. That's what we were just talking about. NHTSA does have an active investigation into Tesla Autopilot, including full self-driving. NHTSA reminds the public that all advanced driver assistance systems require the human driver to be in control and fully engaged in the driving task at all times. All state laws hold
even when you're using full self-driving.
Yes, according to all state laws, hold the human driver responsible for the operation of their vehicles. I don't care what you got going. So what do you think? I mean, 7 fatal crashes, that's pretty serious. 4 of them with motorcycles, 1 of them with an emergency vehicle. We've seen reports that sometimes Teslas don't notice fire trucks that are stopped.
Frequently.
Crashes involving Tesla's driver assistance system have grown, but so has Tesla sales. I wouldn't be surprised. I can't decide if this is legitimate or, kind of over-the-top hit piece almost.
No, it is legitimate. The data from this standing general order, NHTSA publishes it. You can download an Excel spreadsheet, and they update it every month with the new reports that have come in. And all automakers are obligated to submit their data. And you can go through and you can see how many crashes there have been, where level 2 or above systems were active. And you compare the number of crashes with Tesla vehicles versus the population of Tesla vehicles, and the number of crashes with vehicles from other manufacturers, and the numbers are disproportionately Tesla in terms of the number of crashes that those vehicles had. Now, it's also important, when you look through the report, the data in detail, which I have done as part of my job. What you'll also find is that, because of the way the requirement was written, any crash where the driver assist system was active at the time of the crash or up to 30 seconds before, they have to submit it, even if that system had nothing to do with the crash. So, for example, in that data, there are 2 crashes involving Honda vehicles. I think the only 2 crashes. One of them involved the vehicle, the driver was using the system, which technically isn't even really a level 2 system and probably shouldn't have even been reported. But Honda was being overly aggressive, I would say, in reporting, not to leave anything out. And in that particular instance, the vehicle was going through an intersection legally and was T-boned by somebody who ran a stop sign in the other direction.
That's not the
the fault of the system.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you look at the Tesla data, it's not those kinds of crashes.
Tesla reported 736 crashes under Autopilot. The number 2 worst car was Subaru with 23.
Right.
That's a significant difference. Now, there's a lot more Teslas out there, but there's also
not that many more.
There's a lot of Subarus on the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Tesla because when you look at that, you look at that data based on EVs sold. There's way more Tesla EVs in the world than anything else. But when you look at actual auto sales, there's a lot of Subarus.
The Post says the enormous gulf probably reflects wider deployment and use of automation across Tesla's fleet of vehicles, as well as a wider range of circumstances in which Tesla drivers are encouraged to use Autopilot. For one, I can't use Autopilot anywhere but mapped highways in my Ford. You can use it on city streets in a Tesla. That seems problematic.
Yeah. No, it absolutely is. And, as what you were saying, what Robbie was saying, the number of vehicles, from Tesla and other manufacturers that have these kinds of systems is not necessarily that different. It's not like Tesla has dramatically more vehicles with Autopilot on the road than some of the other systems that would qualify under this regulation. But I think that Tesla drivers are far more likely to be using those systems.
Yes.
And because they are not restricted in any way, they're more likely to be using them in scenarios where they probably shouldn't. And then that's when you end up with more crashes.
And I wonder about that because so many Tesla folks are sort of, were early adopters of EVs, and they're sort of people who are willing to give tech a chance that maybe other people don't. How many people have self-driving stuff, or not really self-driving, driver assistance, whatever you want to call it, on their vehicles that are non-Teslas? They're just like, I'm just not using that. So it doesn't seem like there's as much happening because they just don't use it as often.
3 months ago, Tesla claimed full self-driving crashes are 5 times lower than vehicles in normal driving, based on the number of miles driven per collision.
The problem is Tesla is very selective about what data they publish. And, they are almost, they don't really tell us what the context of that data is, compared to what?
Tesla
they're almost certainly comparing.
Tesla even forces NHTSA to redact what kind of software.
That's another one of my complaints. Yeah. But, as far as, that 5 times fewer crashes, they are almost certainly comparing, their vehicles, which are 80% of their vehicles, 90% of their vehicles are less than 5 years old.
Yeah.
They're comparing their vehicles to the entire population of 290 million registered vehicles in the United States.
Yeah.
Most of which are much older and don't have these kinds of systems on them. Because, the average age of vehicles in the U.S. is 12 and a half years. Those vehicles that are 12 and a half years and over, they don't have these kinds of systems on them. So they're comparing, if you were to compare, Tesla, a premium vehicle with, a lot of stuff on it, to other 5 years or younger premium vehicles, so you had a real valid comparison base. I would guess that the numbers are probably very, very different, and probably not better, and very likely worse than the rest of that population of vehicles.
And one expert said, and if you're a motorcycle, stay away from Teslas. It's because they don't see you.
As someone who
very
rides
well.
a motorcycle, I get very, very concerned riding around Teslas, because I know people because the selling point is EV autopilot. That's it. That's the things that sell Tesla.
Yeah.
And I just don't feel comfortable driving by someone who has a Tesla who is clearly not paying attention, because the selling point for their vehicle was autopilot. And they're just like, I'm just going to go over here.
So
no.
Yeah.
Get around from this person.
So what's the answer here? I mean, it's probably the case that fully automated vehicles would be safer than, human drivers are notoriously bad, but they're better than the Tesla.
I think there's a point at which a car will be able to do it better than a human overall. There's still going to be accidents even when it's the car.
Right.
Nothing's ever going to be perfect, but I just don't think we're quite there yet. So this is sort of showing the growing pains of it, pretty dangerous.
Are you implying that our
pains,
ride the other night
dying.
was less than perfect?
Our ride the other night was not quite entirely perfect.
Wait a minute.
Sam.
So now tell me about that. You were on a cruise? What were you in?
We went for a robo-taxi ride in Austin. And
Was it, do you want to say whose?
Yeah, it was Cruise.
It was
Cruise. Yes, it was Cruise. And it was it was a comedy of errors from the minute we hailed the silly thing. We were in a certain zone, there's a certain area of Austin where you can hail these, and Sam hails it and it says, it's going to be right there, right next to you. And then it says, we have arrived. And we're both looking like, no, you haven't.
Where? And you can't miss these because they got all sorts of sensors all around them, and they got things on the top, the lighters spinning. And
there's stuff everywhere. There's no mistaking, maybe that's mine. No, that's not. That's a normal car. Here's mine with a million things sticking off the roof. And we're both sitting there going, it's not here. And it was saying it was there, but it was really 2 blocks away. So we walk the 2 blocks and we're trying to get to it. By the time we get there, it's already left. It's you took too long. And then we hailed another one, and it's no, we got to walk another 2 blocks. I think we walked 6 blocks to hail this stupid robo-taxi. And it just kept going from there. Nothing horrific, but just these this is not right. This is not making my life easier. This is making my life harder.
You guys posted a video on your Wheel Bearings YouTube channel of your experiences. If anybody wants to see this in action,
I got the entire ride is in there from the time we got in the vehicle.
Yeah. Did it drive okay was there a safety driver, or was it?
No, No, there's
if you
no
just
one.
let it keep running for a second, you'll
Okay.
see there's nobody in the front seat.
It's
That's a little
completely
creepy.
empty in the front.
It was just the two of us in the back
It
seat.
was creepy.
Yeah.
And it wasn't ever scary, like dangerous. There's scary, like at one point it was going very, very slowly and we didn't know why. I'm thinking, what's happening? Like, what is it doing? Where you just, at least it makes it feel a little bit like, you're driving that really nervous driver who either doesn't know what they're doing, or maybe you're not from this town. You have no idea where Elm Street is and you're desperately trying to find Elm Street. So you're driving like past every road and kind of pausing. That's kind of how it felt for a good bit of the drive.
It was a little cautious.
It was a little cautious.
And then we had our Cruise Robotaxi honking its horn at another Cruise Robotaxi.
They'll honk at each
Backing
other,
up.
which is kind of fun.
Why do they honk at each other?
Because the one was confused. It thought it was going to hit a car, even though it wasn't. And so it decided to back up, but we were behind it. So as soon as it started
Oh my
back up,
God.
ours, which by the way, was named Alcatraz, which I felt right
That's
there.
not
She
a
told
good
us
start.
not to get in the
Yeah.
car.
Yeah.
Like, we're riding in a prison. I don't like these. I don't like this. I don't like this.
Was yours called Leavenworth? That would have been funny.
No, we were in Alcatraz.
We were
named them
together.
as-
Yeah,
after
we were in
favorite
Alcatraz.
famous federal prisons. That's it's just the way it is.
Yeah, right?
They have all kind. They all have names on them so that you can identify
Yeah.
them. So in the app, when it pulls up, it tells you, Alcatraz
Up in
is arriving, or
Alcatraz.
Roadrunner's arriving.
Seems like a terrible
so you
idea.
can find the right one.
I don't know why they picked the name of a prison.
Nicole, was this your first time in a
road?
robo-taxi?
The first time in a robo-taxi. I'd ridden in things where there was an engineer like sitting there with a keyboard frantically typing in the passenger seat up front and another guy just behind the steering wheel just in case. But this is the first time there was absolutely no one in front. So if things had gone wrong, Sam and I would have died a terrible death. Like there was nothing anybody could do.
There's no one to help us.
There was
No one.
an incident. We had a mass shooting in San Francisco a couple of nights ago in the Mission. And one of the stories was that a cruise blocked safety crews responding to the shooting. Mm-hmm. Here's the video that was posted on Twitter. The car stopped in the middle of the road on 24th and Folsom. It's probably confused by emergency vehicles. It's just stuck there and got in the way of the response.
Well, they do have, these vehicles and the Waymo vehicles, at least, and I think some others. They have one of the things they have on there is microphones on the outside of the vehicle to listen for emergency vehicles. So if they hear a siren, they're supposed to pull over and stop, just like we do.
Right.
And so there's, it may have heard the sirens and
it didn't know where it
decided,
was.
"Okay, I'm just going to stop right
I'm
here.
just going to stop.
Got confused.
Which is probably the safest thing to do.
But
I guess.
that's the issue with self-driving cars, is that getting them to go from here to here in a straight line where on a highway is easy. But when you have the context of, you've been driving a car for decades, you understand, oh, I'm in an area. Yes, there are sirens going on, but I definitely need to get out of this area, or I'm in the way, or I'm doing this. And the driverless car doesn't know that. It doesn't understand that. It doesn't understand edge cases. And so you can keep throwing edge cases at it and keep throwing edge cases at it, but it's very difficult for a car to react like a human who understands the entire world and the context of what is happening in the environment they're in at that moment. Like if that cruise had pulled up and there'd be a bunch of, let's say, sheep, a bunch of sheep got out, you would know, oh, okay, I can just sit here and wait till the sheep go by. There's a sheep herder or whatever. Like, oh, this is fun. Let's shoot video. The car doesn't know what's going on. All it knows is there's a bunch of dogs and now it's completely confused. It's just like little itty bitty things. Like, someone throws a firework in the road. The car doesn't know what's going on. You know what's going on. And so it's like all the edge cases is the reason why self-driving cars are still, to be honest, pretty far out.
Yeah.
In a way that we think that a self-driving car will be, where you get in the car, it drives you from your house to your office without you interacting at all. That means surface streets. That means the highway. That means, with construction zones, with weird traffic patterns. Like that's still pretty far off.
Well, if we've learned anything, almost autonomous is worse than no autonomy at all, right? The impression of autonomy is terrible. If they're not going to, and this, by the way, this is also the lesson we're learning in general about AI. It doesn't think. It's not thinking.
It doesn't actually have understanding.
Yeah. It doesn't know what's
It's
going
just
on.
processing the information, and the first time it gets information it hasn't hit before,
Right.
suddenly it doesn't know what to do, and that's a problem when you got emergency vehicles trying to get by a car.
And yet, we seem to be moving full speed ahead. Mercedes just got approval in California to sell hands-free, eyes-off automated driving vehicles.
But that's still on, like, it's on mapped roads. It's only on the highway. It's only up to certain speeds, and the amount of like, they have these super high quality GPS sensor that tells you within like a few centimeters of where the vehicle is. I mean, there's a lot that goes onto this vehicle, essentially. So if you're stuck in traffic, if you're stuck in gridlock, you can do something else. That's it. That's really what it's for. Their level 3 system is really for if you're stuck and you're not going above a certain speed. It's literally just like, I'm stuck in traffic. I'm not getting off the freeway for the next 20, 30 minutes. So I guess I'll watch a movie.
You could watch a movie.
It also doesn't
You're
work
allowed-
at night or in the rain.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it also doesn't work at night in the rain, and they're very forthcoming. Like, yeah, there's sensors here, just in the wheel wells, just in case the other sensors don't know it's raining. There's a moisture sensor in the wheel well, so they'll have this redundant sensor to tell them when it's raining. They're like, nope, we're not working anymore. We're done.
This is maybe what Tesla should be doing. The Drive Pilot system has both LiDAR, radar, and cameras. It's only available at speeds up to 40 miles an hour during daylight hours on certain highways. It will not engage on city or county roads in construction zones during heavy rain, heavy fog, on flooded roads, during weather conditions determined to impact performance on the system, or when there are sheep in the road. None of those situations.
No sheep in the road.
No sheep in the road.
So 5 minutes of your 1 hour commute, can you actually use this?
So this
If you
is
live in
really, this is
LA,
for stop and go traffic
it's
in a
literally
commute.
LA.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
built
LA.
for the 405 or the 101.
It is definitely built
280.
for LA. And when I've done a bunch of demos in this vehicle, and one of the demos was in LA. They're like, we're going to LA because of course we're doing this.
Where
in
else?
LA.
Yeah, there's never a time in LA where there isn't a traffic jam. It's always bad, and it's usually not cheap.
Yeah.
I just should.
Hey, Leo.
I should mention.
Usually.
You know,
Yeah.
I want to address something you mentioned earlier about, how bad human drivers are.
Yeah.
And granted, 40,000 people a year dying on the roads in the U.S. is
A million
terrible.
worldwide.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's terrible.
Yeah, and we absolutely need to do something about that. But you have to look at it from the other side as well. This is a classic case of tell me which side of the argument you're on, and I'll give you statistics to prove you're right. You often hear 94% of crashes are caused by human error. Well, that's only partly true. Human error is a factor in those, but it's almost never the only factor. And when you consider how much we actually drive, in the U.S., we drive about 3.2 trillion miles a year.
Wow.
That's trillion with a T.
Wow.
And we have about 6.5 million crashes. So that works out to about one crash. And this is not fatal crashes. This is all crashes, even fender benders. About one crash every 500,000 miles. If the average person drives 15,000 miles a year, you're going to crash. Your odds of crashing are about once every 30 years.
That's about right. Yeah.
So, that's actually a remarkably high threshold for an automated system to overcome.
Yeah.
And they have not done that yet.
Yeah.
One crash every 30 years, every 500,000 miles. We've still got a ways to go. And that's those human crashes under all conditions. That's in blizzards and, monsoons and dust storms and at night. And that includes drunk drivers and everything else. So, it's actually really, really hard to make an automated system that is better than a human driver.
Boy, that's such a strong point. I'm glad you said that. I did not know that. It would be difficult, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It boggles my mind when I'm driving to think about, I just drove with all these thousands of other people from this place to another place, and we're all doing all these different things.
It is
There's
amazing,
all these
isn't
rules,
it?
and there's all these lights,
Yeah,
and there's all these
yeah.
stop signs, and there's all these things that happen, and there's construction, and people walking in the road, and again, the sheep, and all these things are going on. And we just, I'm doing my thing.
I always
Or if
think
you're in
that-
Michigan, it's deer.
I always
Or-
think
or
that
wild turkeys.
when I watch The Fifth Element, it's Bruce Willis is the flying cab driver, and he zips into the flying cabs and is driving around. And I'm thinking, as impossible as it seems, probably that's not that much different from us driving around day to day we're just used to it. That's all.
Yeah.
And it's probably, in the sometime in the future with flying cars. I always thought we wouldn't have flying cars until we had full autonomy. That's the only way. Because if a flying car crashes, he falls on your head. It's not a...
That's the problem. When the FAA...
Cars falling out of the sky.
It's not to worry about...
Not a good look. Yeah.
It's not a good look.
And then speaking of which...
sort of a bad idea.
Yeah.
That's something else, probably the first regulation we need to have, because we don't actually have any regulations at a federal level around automated driving. The first thing we actually need to have is a change in the rules that if the vehicle is in an automated driving mode where the human is not required to watch the road, so level 3 and above, the manufacturer must be liable if something happens while you're in that mode. The human should not be liable.
That would shut Elon up fast.
Well, Mercedes and Volvo, and I think BMW have all said that they will be.
Yeah, and most automakers have said, at least off the record, they haven't necessarily declared it publicly, but they said that that's their intention.
That's fair.
If the human's not supervising, then they're responsible. The only one that has never said that is Tesla.
Yeah, that's the last thing they'd want. Is there a chance Congress could ever pass something like that, or is it NHTSA that would have to do that?
I don't know that Congress necessarily has to. I think
it could just be
probably NHTSA or maybe the FTC.
Yeah,
could make the rule. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, then at some point the courts would test it because, Elon would say, "Well, wait a minute, I'm not liable." All right, let's take a little break. Lots more to come with our Wheel Bearings takeover from wheelbearings.media, Sam Abul-Samad. He's also a regular on Ask the Tech Guy and on Twit and many of other shows. It's great to have you, Sam. You were on Ask the Tech Guy earlier today. We talked about Elon's imminent takeover of the entire EV charging infrastructure in the United States. Probably should talk about that again on this show. Give Robbie and Nicole a chance to respond. Robbie, Roberto Baldwin, as he's known to his enemies, freelance journalist dude, leader of many cover bands, wearer of the Daft Punk helmet, and Nicole Wakelin.
Yay! Good job.
Automotive journalist from New Hampshire. Are you a native of New Hampshire, Nicole?
Well, pretty much. I moved here when I was like 2, so I would say...
That counts.
Yeah, that counts.
Yeah, that counts.
I grew up in Rhode Island, but I lost the accent when I moved. But you don't have any New Hampshire accent. You can't get that from here.
No, my mom was from Pennsylvania and she hated the New England accent, so she corrected every time I said fire instead of fire and wada instead of wada. She corrected me my whole life and drove me nuts. But now, thanks, Mom.
Yeah. I guess I owe it to my mom too that I never got the Cranston accent. She still lives in Cranston. That is the worst New England accent. If you want to pick one, it's Cranston.
Cranston. Yeah, is that the one?
So nasal. So nasal. Our show
None of New England's accents are good.
I think some of them are great. Yeah, I love the Boston accent, as does Hollywood. So there you go. Our show today brought to you by Miro. I always struggle with Miro because I don't know how to describe it because it could be anything you need it to be. It is a workspace for you and your team to get the job done, to brainstorm, to share ideas. If you and your team are still going from tab to tab and tool to tool, every time we switch context like that, you lose ideas. You forget where you are, right? Important information just drifts away. With Miro, you don't have to do that. Miro is a collaborative visual platform that brings all your great work together no matter where you are, no matter what you use, because it integrates with all the tools you use today. And even if you're not in the same time zone with your team, you all can work together in one workspace online. It really is the best way to collaborate. It democratizes collaboration and input. Everybody's on an equal playing field. There's one source of truth. You can zoom in if you want to see the details, zoom out if you want to see the overview. Miro's infinite shared boards give product teams a perpetual space where they can drag and drop insights and data. Nothing is lost. It can be a vision board. It can be a Kanban board. It could be a swim lane chart. Miro covers a breadth of use cases. You can build visual assets. You can present findings. You can run brainstorms with cross-functional teams. The product designers can sketch out an idea. The engineers can come in and build it out. Your executives can come in and say, how do we market this? You can build out your product vision by brainstorming on a Miro board with sticky notes, with comments, with live reactions. There's a voting tool, which is very useful. There's a timer, great for online meetings. So you come to consensus quickly. You can express yourself in creative ways, bring the whole group together around one idea. It's so hard for me to describe because it be so many things. Here's what you do. You go to Miro.com/podcast, sign up for your free account. Your first 3 boards are free, so you can start working right now and really get an idea of what it can do. You can also, and this is fantastic, click the button on the left. It says Miroverse. This is a whole bunch of templates created by Miro users, donated to you. You can use them yourself, but it's a great idea to get a sense of what you can do with Miro. It is incredibly creative, whether it's a wireframe or a sketch or images collaged from other sources. You can drag in your data from all the tools that you use, Google Docs and Drive and Zoom. And Miro users say they save up to 80 hours per user per year by streamlining conversations, cutting down meetings. It works with Zapier, so you can actually bring data into Miro automatically. It's a great way for any team to stay connected to real-time information, no matter where they are, no matter what time zone they're in. It gives project managers and product leads a bird's eye view of the whole project so nothing slips through the cracks. No wonder 1 million people use Miro every month. 1 million people use Miro every month. I want you to try it, and you can for free. 3 boards free. To start creating your best work yet, Miro, Miro.com/podcast. I can't tell you what you could do with it. You got to try it, and you will see. It's really amazing. Miro.com/podcast. We thank them so much for their support of This Week in Tech and our big wheel bearings takeover. Wheelbearings.media. Do we want to talk about I'm a little worried that Elon is going to, all the Ford and GM at least, but I think if once Ford and GM do it, probably others will as well, are saying we're going to support the Tesla Supercharger. And Sam, you said this will ultimately be in replacing the fast charging system that we use today.
I think it will be. I think it's the supercharger connector, the so-called North American Charging Standard connector, which Tesla just rebranded a few months ago from, it previously didn't really have a name. Now it's NACS. That is going to become the standard, and CCS is eventually just going to fade away, much like HD DVD is so popular today.
What? Hold on.
Earlier today, I said it was like the VHS Betamax battle, back in the 80s or 70s,
Yep.
and but this time Betamax won. The proprietary.
Is it
Sony
better?
won this time?
Betamax was
It
always
is.
better, right?
It was
It
better.
was better. If these charging companies, they've had time to build a nice, robust, reliable network, and they've not built a reliable network.
Explain to me why not. This is the thing that puzzles me. As somebody who drives an EV day in, day out, I agree with you. I mean, half the time you pull up to a charger, it's out of order. Why
They
is
have
that?
a million reasons. Like when you talk to them, I did a road trip from Disneyland to Disney World in an EV to see
Wow.
how it would go. Yeah, I was insane. So I did this, and it was to see if you just did it and you just stop at charging stations, how hard is it to do and how long will it take? And they didn't work. And then when I talked to them after the fact, like, well, when we installed these, we were trying to get them out really quick, and we were limited to where we could put them. We were limited by the infrastructure. And it was just a million different excuses. So we're really doing our best and we're making it better. I'm like, but it stinks. It was terrible. Like I would not having things you walk up, it's like, oh, I should be getting tons of power, 7 kilowatts. I'm going to be living at this charger now for the next 5 hours. Like it was ridiculous. And there was never any kind of, we messed up and this is why. It was like, well, all these things made it impossible for us to do better. We just couldn't. We couldn't.
Meanwhile, Tesla had done it like 10 years earlier.
Exactly. I'm like, well, Tesla did it. How come you can't do it?
But I don't want Elon to have a monopoly. One more thing. I mean, Elon is going to own the solar panels.
Everything.
He's going to own the EVs. He's going to own the charging infrastructure. Mm-hmm. I think that's a bad thing. I mean, you need choice.
It's a horrible thing, because if I have a problem with Electrify America, I can contact someone at Electrify America.
There's an 800 number printed right on the charger.
Yeah.
And they pick up right away, and they're very helpful, actually.
If I have a problem with Tesla and I email them, I'll probably get a poop emoji, like the way if you email about Twitter. They're just like, well, we don't have to talk to you, and so it's not an ideal situation. But if someone comes up to me and says, I want to drive an EV across country, what's the best way to do it? My immediate answer is, and even though I don't want this vehicle, I wouldn't recommend anyone buying this vehicle other than this situation, buy a Model 3.
It is one of the reasons I bought a Model X. My first electric vehicle was a Tesla Model X, and I didn't buy it until they put a supercharger just down the road in Petaluma. Because in my mind, and I think this is probably true, a lot of people who have never owned EVs thought, I need to have a supercharger. Or, and what I didn't realize is 99.9% of the time I charge at home. I have a gas station in my house.
Yeah, I have all this free charging credit with Electrify America for a Kona electric.
Me too.
That we used it the first 2 times we charged, and we haven't used it. It's been like 2 years.
Yeah.
We have to use these. And I
have a 250,000 miles for my Ford Mach-E, and I've used EA once.
Yeah, you just don't use it.
I don't need
plugging it at home. Yeah. And I'm like, we have to use it somehow. My wife went on one road trip to like San Joaquin Valley and used it then. There's still probably 225 free kilowatt hours.
See, that's it though. Power. If you do the road trip, it's the road trip thing. If you drive long distances, if you go out of your little circle of comfort where you know where chargers, then suddenly you want to use it.
Not going to do it. I like my circle.
Never going to go.
Never
You're
going to
just
go.
staying in your circle. That's it. Okay.
But
then you need to worry about it, Leo.
That's the crazy thing, is that Americans think they take way more road trips than they actually
they
do.
Really don't.
Yeah. Because they all remember as kids, because flying was so incredibly expensive.
We did when we were kids.
Right.
Everyone drove everywhere, but now you can get a flight for $50.
Yeah.
To like LA from San Francisco.
And you don't have to spend 3 days in the car with your kids.
Yeah, we're taking Michael to Green Bay to see the Packers, because somehow I don't understand how this kid who grew up in the Bay Area is a Packers fan.
Genetic mutation.
But we're sure as hell not driving to Wisconsin. That would be insane. Yeah.
But in the 70s and 80s, you would. And so all the kids who have grown up, now we all think we're doing all these crazy road trips. The reality is we're not. And, when you're driving to work, you feel like you're driving so much further than you actually are because you're stuck in traffic. It takes an hour to go 20 miles.
Yeah.
There's this huge like mental like block within the American psyche when it comes to driving that, no, I need to have a supercharger. I need to be able to drive from San Francisco to Philadelphia at a moment's notice.
You never know.
You never know.
You never
know what's going to happen. And even though every morning you get up and your car is full of, gas, if you have an EV, the tank is full of electricity. Mm-hmm. Every morning, you never have to go to the gas station. You never have to deal with that junk ever again. If you're just cruising around town, like mostly what we do, we are still stuck in that mindset that we're always driving hundreds and hundreds of miles every week.
We all think we're the Blues Brothers.
Flip side. Yeah, let me give you the flip side of what Robbie just said, though.
Not the Blues.
Okay. Yeah. So he's absolutely right that most people rarely, if ever, take long road trips, and 85% of daily driving is less than 40 miles a day. So the vast majority of people could get along just fine with an EV that has a 200-mile range, or 110-mile range, as Lisa has found out. But
that's by the way, that's on a good day with the wind at your back in her Mini Cooper. It's usually more like 80 miles. But that's fine because she drives it to work and back. She drives it around town. That's plenty,
right? But what you said, Leo, about you charge it at home almost all the time. Same for Robbie.
Yeah.
And when you look at the people that are buying EVs today, that is absolutely true. The vast majority of them just do most of their charging at home. But the reality is most people don't buy new cars. we sell 3.5 times as many used cars in the United States every year.
Because most people are smart. I'm the only idiot buying a car that's going to depreciate 50% the day I drive it off the lot.
But that new car smell, though.
Oh, it's worth it, isn't it?
Right?
But
That's all you
smell,
guys
just for
ever
that.
smell. You're like the Queen. They say the Queen of England, only everything smelled like fresh paint to the Queen of England because she never went anywhere that hadn't just been freshly painted for her visit.
Yeah.
You guys think all cars smell really good
All cars smell
because
like
you've
new car
only
smell.
driven new cars.
So
It's glorious.
So,
I'm very jealous.
the reality is, that people that actually can afford to buy new cars are much more likely to live in a single family home with off-street parking, and they will charge at home. But as EVs start to filter into the used car market, and
that's
the
a good
people
point.
that buy
People in apartments,
8, 10,
and
15-year-old
condos.
cars,
Yeah.
you have a much higher proportion, probably half of those people that don't live somewhere where they have off-street parking. Those people are going to be dependent on public charging infrastructure.
That's a very
lot of
good
which
point.
is going to be DC fast charging.
Yeah.
So it is critical that we actually make this stuff reliable, because even though we may not use it as much as you think today, 10 years from now, a lot of people will be much more reliant on those public chargers. And so, going to Tesla today, and which will put economic pressure on the Electrify Americas and EVgo's and charge points of the world to get their act together and improve their charging network reliability I think is really important. Yeah, I don't want Tesla to have a monopoly, and I don't think they will. I think that the competitive pressure.
Says, you told me on Ask the Tech Guys, he is in effect open sourced the NCAS charger.
Yeah, the connector is open source.
Okay.
Because GM and Ford both confirmed to me in the last couple of days that no, they don't have to pay any royalty to
They
use
would
the connector.
never have
It's free of charge.
adopted it if they'd had to pay
No.
Elon.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Because that's the last thing we'd want to see, which is, I mean, Elon's bad enough, but if he owned effectively every gas station in America, he'd really be insufferable. I mean, we'd be.
Because he's not now.
Well, just imagine, right? Well, how do we feel about Mr. Bean? That's the question. Rowan Atkinson writing in The Guardian, I love electric vehicles and was an early adopter, but increasingly I feel duped. Now, you might wonder why you would listen to Mr. Bean about anything, but he points out that he, in fact, got his university degree in electrical and electronic engineering and a master's in control systems. So I guess I didn't know this. He was an engineer before he became famous for being stupid.
That's the most apt description of Mr. Bean.
Famous for being stupid. Okay.
Famous for being stupid.
He says, when you drill into the facts, electric motoring doesn't seem to be quite the environmental panacea it is claimed to be. Now, we've heard this before from the gas vehicle industry that, and anybody who doesn't like electric cars, which is most people who own ICE cars, those emissions in the making of the electric cars are so high, and the usage of rare earth elements and lithium is so bad for the environment. Is that true?
Not entirely.
No, really.
It does take more energy, and there's more emissions associated with producing batteries and EVs than it is with internal combustion cars.
He says Volvo released figures that greenhouse gas emissions during production of electric car are 70% higher than for manufacturing a petrol one. Is that right?
That is absolutely correct. Based on the way that we make batteries today, which means mining lithium and nickel and cobalt, out of the ground and shipping it to China, from South America or Indonesia, and processing it there and then shipping it to a Volvo factory in Sweden. So yes, that is correct. And so as far as it goes, but it's not the whole story. Once that vehicle is in use and it's not emitting anything, or at least it's not directly emitting anything, even when you factor in power plant emissions, the crossover point is on average is usually somewhere around 3 to 4 years. After 3 to 4 years in use, from that point on, the EV will have less life cycle emissions over its entire useful life
no
than
gas
a
emissions.
gas vehicle.
Yeah.
Right, because you're not adding any, or you're adding very much less in terms of power plant emissions.
And that doesn't take into account like the drilling for oil, transporting oil,
Right.
get in a boat for oil, doing this other thing for oil, doing all these things that have the oil industrial complex, all the things that are going on. That's not even taking any of that into account. While at the same time, they're taking into account the mining of lithium. They're not taking into account the, drilling for oil.
Mm-hmm.
And when that battery reaches its end of life after 150, 200,000 miles, we can recycle that battery. We can't do that with oil. And when you take a lithium ion battery and you recycle it, and then you take those minerals, instead of mining them and processing them, you can put them right back into new battery production at a tiny fraction of the total energy cost and emissions of building that new battery. So that 70% number is only true for the first time, the original battery being made from virgin materials. After that, those numbers start to go way down. So it's only true as far as it goes, which is not very far.
Mr. Bean says we should.
Mr. Bean.
But Mr. Bean, he's Mr. Bean.
Mr. Bean says, Blackadder says we should look at hydrogen vehicles and synthetic fuels.
Well, synthetic fuels are still fuels. And hydrogen, there's no infrastructure, and you still have to make hydrogen.
Right. And right
the
now, the idea of green hydrogen is a misnomer. The hydrogen is not green yet.
It's like green coal.
There is green hydrogen, but there's only a tiny amount of it being made.
Yeah.
Making it by splitting water using renewable energy. Yeah, it's green hydrogen. There's zero emissions associated with that.
Right.
But there is only a tiny fraction of what we would actually need is produced that way today. Someday, hopefully, that will change. Today, that's not the case.
Formula One says that by 2026, they're going to go to synthetic fuels that they hope will be net zero impact on carbon emissions. Is that possible?
Yeah. There's work being done on so-called e-fuels or synthetic fuels.
I feel very guilty because I love Formula One, and I'm looking at it, and not just the cars. They're all taking private jets all over the world, 23 weeks a year. I mean, there's a huge carbon footprint.
But they're getting rid of tire warmers next year, so that'll fix it.
That'll help it. Thank goodness.
The problem with those synthetic fuels, they're taking CO2 from the atmosphere.
What are they made from? What are they?
Oh, they use CO2 from the atmosphere and some other stuff, and they run it through a process that generates a liquid hydrocarbon fuel that can be a drop-in replacement for gasoline.
And then when you burn it, does it put carbon back into the air?
Yes.
But the same carbon it took out of the air in the first place.
Yeah. So it's effectively a net zero process. But it's a process that has not yet been scaled up to anything that would be useful for the amount of fuel that we actually use for ground transportation or aviation. And it's also much more expensive than producing fuels from crude oil.
Well, that's fine for Formula One, but probably not for your Corolla.
Right.
Yeah.
It's great for Formula One because they're already spending billions and billions.
Right. It's the least expense.
Lots of money.
So we can get that Netflix series every year. Yeah. I literally ignore all of Formula One just so I can watch the Netflix series. I tried to watch Formula One.
It's much more fun if you just watch Drive to Survive.
But I'm just like, you know what? No,
they
I don't
really
know who wins.
They take
I don't
a
know
whole
who gets the
take a whole season.
Doesn't
matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
None of that. None of that matters to me. All my friends are always talking about Formula One. I'm like, la 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 la.
Really?
Netflix. All right.
I don't want to know who won because I want to see it on Netflix in a year.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's a good policy.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, it was Max.
Max, yeah. It's all Max. All right. I think actually I'm intrigued by the idea of making hydrogen with, wind power, or somebody in our chat room says, I'm a nuclear engineer. You can make it with nuclear power.
Yeah. Yeah. Any source of electricity will work.
So maybe does it use a lot of electricity? It's pretty heavy use of electricity.
It uses a fair amount, but if you're doing it at scale, if you make large wind farms or solar farms or a nuclear plant, you can generate a lot of hydrogen from water. And the other thing, if you do it in coastal areas, you can use that nuclear plant to drive a desalination plant that you can then take that water and you make potable water, and you can also take some of that and split it to produce hydrogen. And there's
because we're going to need those desalinization plants real soon.
The fact that there aren't any yet along the West Coast is quite remarkable to me.
Quite be building those. And let Mr. Bean have his gas vehicle.
Somebody in the chat did make an interesting point though, about tire emissions. Over the last decade or so, as particulate emissions from diesel engines, the soot that used to be the biggest source of particulate emissions, has largely gone away because of particulate filters on diesel engines. The biggest source of particulate emissions now is tires.
I know, because I see on the Formula One racetrack, there's just tire debris all over.
Right, and you get from regular road tires, you get a lot of airborne particulates.
That's right.
Because when your tires wear out, I mean that stuff doesn't just magically vaporize. Those little chunks of rubber, they end up floating in the air.
Is that bad stuff? That rubber?
Oh yeah, it's very bad for you.
Yes.
Great.
So tire companies are working on trying to reduce that, and make tires that and EVs, because they're heavier and also have that instantaneous torque. They put more stress on the tires, so EV tires do wear out faster. And so tire manufacturers are working on new tire formulations to try to reduce that impact.
We live about 200 feet from Highway 101, so that means I'm breathing that.
Yeah.
It's not going to the air. It's all going to Leo's lungs.
These companies accountable for what they've been adding to the environment, which before we weren't really, we're just driving, Javelins and Chargers everywhere and peeling out and, using leaded gasoline. And so over the decades, we started holding these companies accountable, and they have to make changes in order to make the world an easier place to breathe and live. So
it's an important point. The price we pay for stuff does not reflect the total cost of that stuff. Yeah. And the rest of it,
externalities.
Yeah, those externalities are subsidized either by the government or by us or by our lungs. And that really should be part of the total cost. 33 cents a gallon gasoline for decades in my youth really cost a lot more than 33 cents a gallon in the long run. And if you live in, are you getting any of the smoke from Canada in New Hampshire, or is it blowing?
We did. It's gone now, but for a while it was actually pretty bad. You couldn't smell it, but you could see it. We have that weird sort of orange hazy Tatooine look to the sky for about 2 days. And anybody who had any kind of breathing issue, you noticed it. So yeah, we did have that from the fires for a bit.
That's perfect.
Tuesday, Wednesday, the air quality index around here was around 250.
Oh yeah. In New York, well over 400.
That's terrible.
Just a terrible, terrible thing. And I think they said it's going to continue for a while because those fires.
We get off and on warnings. Like they're like, today's bad, tomorrow's not. Like you got to look at the weather from day to day at this point.
And honestly, that is also the cost of 33 cents a gallon gasoline and a bunch of 4-gallon a mile gas guzzlers for decades. That's part of the cost.
Mm-hmm. And the thought process is like, well, EVs aren't going to solve it all. I'm like, yes, it's a part. It's a part of a solution, and it's like we still have to.
We got a lot of solving to do. We got a lot
of solving to do.
Yes.
We need a more robust public transportation system. We need more protected bike lanes for people to ride their bikes who don't have. You don't need to drive your car everywhere. You can have a nice bike ride if you want to go somewhere. We have to change. We try to get rid of all those high emission peakers on the grid. Try to get rid of coal fires. And all these things are changing, but mostly they're changing for monetary reasons. Like it's cheaper to have batteries next to a power plant than it is to fire up a coal burning or a diesel burning peaker on the grid. It's not because the utilities feel better about making us feel better. It's because, it's cheaper to do this. Right. It's also cleaner, but it's cheaper.
I don't care what their incentives are as long as they do the right thing. Yeah. Please do the right thing. Because it's not looking good, I gotta say. Meanwhile, the U.S. government wants you to believe in UFOs.
Finally.
Don't you? You say that as if you don't believe in UFOs.
I don't believe in UFOs, but there's a lot of people very excited about alien visitors. Apparently, lately, what's been going on is a former national security professional who was assigned to the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force for 3 years now says he's seen things you
would not believe.
I've seen things, man.
He's seen parts of alien craft, and he's seen alien bodies, apparently, that the government is...
Bob Lazar. Are we talking about Bob Lazar?
No. Now, Bob Lazar has been discredited, I think. Right?
Okay.
That was back in the 80s.
Maybe you don't believe him, but you never know. It was all part of
the government
scheme.
Anyway, no, this is a new guy, Dave Grush, who I don't know what he's seen, but he says he's seen things you wouldn't believe. And this is an interesting editorial in the New York Times from Russ Dutat, who says, okay, why is this guy, who is actually credible, he's still working in the U.S. government, he's operating through normal national security channels, making this report, why is this guy all of a sudden surfacing? And he says he actually thinks it's the U.S. government doing this. He says there may not be alien spacecraft, but there clearly now is a faction within the national security complex that wants Americans to think there might be alien spacecraft.
Why? What would
there's a couple of reasons. A, if they do know, and eventually it's going to get out. Eventually, someone's going to get, because we all have cameras with us at all times. Eventually, someone's going to get real credible evidence, and if we've already accepted it, then it's fine. B, they're doing some crazy stuff with planes and technology, and it's super easy to just pretend like it was.
Pay no attention. That's not our vehicle. That's an alien.
It must have been a UFO.
Right. It's a great excuse for hiding all sorts of super secret stuff.
Well,
it was an alien.
You know what it really is? It's all those companies doing urban air mobility craft. Those
eVTOLs.
eVTOLs that are crashing. That's what he's actually been seeing is the crashed VTOLs. They don't want to upset the investors, so the military has been collecting these crash vehicles and hiding them away so that nobody knows that these things are inherently unsafe.
He says this is why there was all that attention to military shoot downs of balloons earlier this year. See. It also includes, according to Dutat, examples of other credentialed figures like the Stanford pathology professor Gary Nolan, who claimed they're being handed evidence of extraterrestrial contact. Writers are being fed strange stories.
Strange
stories. Now, I have to say, the mere thought that somebody would have the skills, the faster than speed of light vehicles, the ability to transit huge distances to come here and then just crash seems unlikely.
Well, you know what? They had Autopilot on, and they're like, because most of the time it's fine. And then
that's
every once in a while,
it's like the highway driving, and then we got to the 405, and of course we crashed. It was
planet Earth is like a flock of sheep in the road.
We're a giant pile of sheep, just one giant sheep.
I read Project Hail Mary while I was on vacation.
Great book.
It's clear that you can do all of that stuff, and they have just come here. I mean, look at how many times they very nearly crashed in that book.
That's true.
So. I think what
aliens
you said is entirely
are no better than Mr.
possible.
Bean. Once they get here, anything could happen.
Anything could happen.
My dad worked for the military, and he would go to Area 51 occasionally to work on planes. And he had top secret clearance, and he would not tell me a goddamn thing.
He knew.
So I became very obsessed. And so in the 90s, I ended up finding a bunch of information online, like this big book.
So that's how you knew about Bob Lazar.
So that's he's part of it. He's part of it. Robbie's part of the writers being willing to fed weird science. That's him.
So Robbie, what is you've done the research. What's your thinking on this?
We all have phones. How come we don't see anything? It's like Bigfoot, Yeti, all the things that we were like, oh, well, we had a picture, but you don't always have a phone. Now everyone's walking around Loch Ness with phones in their pocket. We're all in the woods because, we love to hike. There's a whole, there's REI, there's Sports Basement. There's all these companies that just go out in the woods and wander around. And we have phones with us there. We have cameras for everything. And we just don't have anything.
No, see,
because the aliens
Robbie
are cagey.
Robbie was indoctrinated by his father, so he's clearly part of this conspiracy.
That's true. That's
think about it. With all of the image processing that we have on our phones, do you really think that even if we did see something, that our phones would actually allow us to capture that information?
Oh, that's another good thing.
It's clearly been programmed.
They have cloaking devices like Klingons.
And the Men in Black guys, when you see it, they do the little ting thing, and that's it. Now, poof, you don't know anything. You took the video, you deleted it, poof, now you've forgotten.
I think the very clear evidence there is no such thing is if there were, Donald Trump would have accidentally revealed it long ago.
You're probably right.
That's true. He would have just tweeted it.
Yeah.
And then the aliens.
Redacted says it. It's all in Trump's bathroom.
Yeah, you know that. All right, let's take a little break. We've got a few more stories. We can wrap it up soon. You guys are fantastic. The Wheel Bearings Takeover has been a massive success. Thanks to you three, Nicole and Robbie and Sam. It's great to have all three of you on the show this week. We really appreciate it. Our show today brought to you by Lookout. Look out! You aliens, you're on the 405. There's sheep. Business, not that kind of lookout, different kind of lookout. Business has changed forever. Boundaries to where we work, even how we work, seem to have just vanished in the haze. That means your data now is always on the move. It could be anywhere, right? Whether on a device, in the cloud, across networks, down at the local coffee shop. Great for your workforce. A little bit of a challenge for your IT security. That's why you need Lookout. Lookout helps you control your data and free your workspace. Lookout gives you complete visibility into everything, all your data, so you can minimize risk from internal and external threats. You can ensure compliance, and by seamlessly securing hybrid work, your organization doesn't have to give up productivity for security. Lookout makes IT security a lot simpler. Working with multiple point solutions and legacy tools in today's environment, that's just too complex. Lookout gives you a single unified platform that reduces IT complexity, gives you more time to focus on whatever else comes your way. IT loves it. Your users will love it. You'll love the security, because the truth is, good data protection shouldn't be a cage. It should be a springboard so that you and your organization can leap forward into the future if you're making. Visit lookout.com today to learn how to safeguard data, secure hybrid work, reduce IT complexity. Lookout, Lookout, lookout.com. We thank them so much for supporting Twit. You support Twit by using that address, then they know you saw it here. Lookout.com. Now look out, because we had a great week this week, and I've made a little video so that you can enjoy all the highlights. Watch.
It's already been a big day, but we do have one more thing.
Say it, everybody. Yeah. You're watching our live coverage of the Apple 2023 WWDC keynote. Look, you can see your eyes.
Previously on Twit. Tech News Weekly.
What is it like to see through the Apple Vision Pro, like actually on your face, looking through it with your own eyes? Well, Jason Snell from 6 Colors, he can actually tell us.
They really nailed the interactions. I mean, you could tell that this is Apple human interaction designers working for years to try to find the right way to get this thing to feel natural, and also use kind of our tapping and swiping skills that we picked up over the last 15 years with the iPhone.
All about Android.
I've got a review of the Pixel 7a. The A series obviously occupies a different category of phone. It's not the premium top of the line, flagship model. Like, it's really close. It's really close to the 7.
This week in AI. I mean, Google.
I think we need a bell that goes off on the show whenever a new member joins.
I could do that.
What about the Punch Leo thing? That would be perfect.
Just give me the signal. Just give me the signal. Oh, yeah,
you got Ant now.
I really want the button. So if I have a button that vibrates
that
something like... Oh, I do have a clicker.
Oh!
That's pretty good. It's a little latent, but
Twit. I think I'm suffering some brain. We also want to thank all of our Club Twit members for making this show possible and all of our shows. Club Twit is $7 a month. You get a lot of benefits, including ad-free versions of everything we do. You wouldn't even hear this ad for Club Twit in the Club Twit feed. And shows we don't put out anywhere else, like Home Theater Geeks with Scott Wilkinson, Hands on Mac with Micah Sargent. There's some great shows just for the club. We use the club to launch new programming. That's where This Week in Space came from, because club members subsidize it. They help us do this stuff on the air. So if you're not a member of Club Twit, you want to get ad-free versions of the shows. You want to see those other shows. Oh, and by the way, you want to get in the Discord, which is a wonderful hang. It is the future of social. Twit.tv/clubtwit. $7 a month, $84 a year. Tell your spouse we don't want any chargebacks. We got a couple of chargebacks. I think almost all of our chargebacks come from geeks who bought a year-long subscription, and then their wives or husbands, their spouses noticed this and said, "What's this?" and said, "That's fraudulent." And now we have to pay them back. So please, does that happen on your Patreon? Does that ever happen to you guys?
Not that I know.
Must be a unique thing that's just us. I don't know why that is. And chargebacks, this, are terrible. I mean, all of a sudden, at some point, Stripe is going to say you can't use this anymore. So, please tell your spouse. Okay, that's all I ask. Coinbase and Binance getting cracked out. Is it over for crypto? Coinbase.
God, I hope so.
No.
Never?
Crypto's never going to
die. Never going away, ever. It's going to be around forever.
It's a religion. It's a religion now.
The Security and Exchange Commission says Coinbase and Binance are unregistered security exchanges, that crypto is a security. And Coinbase said, well, you should have told us that. The rules weren't clear. We, like many other crypto entities, they've been asking for regulation, asking for clarity. Paul Grewal, Coinbase's chief legal officer, says the solution's legislation that allows fair rules for the road to be developed transparently and applied equally, not litigation. So SEC has now sued Binance, the world's largest crypto trading platform, and now Coinbase.
I don't think it's the SEC that should be regulating crypto, but the Nevada Gaming Commission.
Yeah. It's kind of a gamble. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, a little. And the house always wins.
It does seem to fall in between the cracks. Is it money? Is it speculation? Is it security? It's something new that doesn't exist. That never existed before. In any event, Robinhood has announced they're going to stop letting you buy crypto at the end of the month. I wonder if it's the end of the line for cryptocurrency.
No, I don't think it's going to keep going. I think it's just going to hang on there. It's going to keep changing.
It's never going away.
The SEC is going to sue one guy, and then another guy is going to come up, and they're going to have to change
like whack-a-mole.
They'll sue. Yeah, like whack-a-mole. Oh, the next guy, bop, 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 and they're going to keep going after him.
It is 10 years since Edward Snowden and his revelations changed our world. Snowden says, thanks to me, end-to-end encryption is everywhere. We now understand what governments are learning about us, and we are more aware of privacy. I also think it's a little weird that he is now a Russian citizen. He's been living in Moscow for the past 10 years, but that's mostly because the U.S. wouldn't let him live anywhere else. He was in Hong Kong. They chased him out of Hong Kong. He had planned to go to Ecuador until he was told, you can't go there. So now he's a Russian citizen. The good news is you can't be extradited if you're a Russian citizen. I am so up in the air on this one. I think
it's the same. Like, on one hand, you're like, okay, he brought a lot of horrible things that were going on to light, and he did for the public to understand privacy and encryption is a huge deal. But at the same time,
he jeopardized national security. Keith Alexander, who was NSA director.
Well, he also trusted Glenn Greenwald, which is
another mistake.
Possible. Like that right there is the biggest mistake he made. It wasn't like it was like, oh, I'm going to trust the biggest idiot in journalism.
I think what the way Snowden did it, I think his intentions were good, and trying to pick somebody to work with and make sure everything stayed encrypted and review everything and not just like WikiLeaks just publish the whole thing. He tried to do it.
No, he went to a bunch of journalists.
Yeah.
He let them vet the information.
Right. And do it try to do it in a responsible way.
He said, I went to
Robbie's point, Glenn Greenwald.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but at the time we might not have known, that Glenn was what he was to become. But honestly, Snowden says, I tried whistleblowing. It didn't work. They wouldn't listen to me. I had to do this. And certainly we've learned a lot from him about, NSL scooping up everyone's records. In 2015, Congress wrote the USA Freedom Act, which made that illegal. Rightly so. So there have been some shifts and benefits. This is terrible, but I feel like he should have done what Reality Winner did, what Chelsea Manning. He should have done what he did and then stood up and taken the charges. But in response, said, I'm responsible. Look, I think this is important. I will go to court. I will be tried. And if you put me in jail, you put me in jail. Yeah. Going to Russia taints it a little bit.
It does. It taints it a lot because, he can't say any, how do you feel about the Ukraine war, Edward Snowden? You're never going to hear about that because he says,
he says, according to NPR, I'm constantly criticizing the Russian government's policy, the Russian government's human rights record, even the Russian president by name. I think he's not doing it really loudly.
I think he's criticizing,
maybe at night,
super quietly. He whispers it.
A blanket over his head.
Right. He's like, the president's terrible. Okay, now I'm going to bed. Like, how does that?
And also, you live in Russia, so if you're not being critical of Putin because you live in Russia and you don't want to fall out of a window, which seems to be a thing that happens a lot in Russia.
Yeah.
Then I understand, but it also
they need better railings there. I don't know.
They need better railings, better windows. I don't know what the situation is with Russia and windows, but the people just falling out of them, and they always seem to be people who Putin are angry with. So maybe they're just so sad because Putin's not happy with them. They're just leaning on the window, smoking a cigarette.
Who put plutonium in my tea? What? That's crazy.
How did I get poisoned just because I was critical of the president?
I actually like how Quippy Quint in our Discord chat put it. He did the right thing in the wrong way.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people feel that way. He's trying to do a good thing, but he just did a good thing bad.
He is still charged. If he were to come back, he would face charges. He's got a family and children now in Russia.
He's not coming back then.
He's not coming back.
He's got kids.
He's not coming back.
So I'm grateful to him for what he did. I really am. I think it was important. I don't know. I think if you're going to do something so honorable, so important, it's hard, but you got to stand up and don't do the crime if you can't do the time, in the words.
Kind of like have the courage. The courage of your convictions. Like if you're gonna do that and you're gonna go out there and you're gonna do something you know is iffy for a good reason, then okay, I believe in it so much, I will take the heat for whatever I have done in the interest of getting this information out there.
And then the trial, just even in discovery for the trial, they would have been able to, uncover more things that had been going on.
Right.
There's a lot of, and even if he gets convicted, there'll always be people who are like, oh, well, what he did is just wrong, top to bottom. And you're like, all right. But I think a majority of people understand what he did and what that means for us, privacy and encryption wise, it was a benefit. And I think, at some point a president would be like, you know what, just go home and wherever you're from.
That's what happened.
Edward Snowden's
Chelsea
from.
Manning, right? Obama commuted her sentence, right?
You're like, you did a bad thing for a good reason.
For a good reason. Exactly.
Yeah. That benefits others. Yeah. So, and the country in general.
Anyway, hey, I'm so glad you guys were here. What a great time to spend some time with the Wheel Bearings crew. Sam suggested this, and I was glad you did. We've done some takeovers with other podcasts, and it's really fun because you have a relationship. You know, you guys, you work well together, and I'm glad you could let me be part of that team.
Well, thank you. It was fun.
Thank you. This was fun.
Is Wheel Bearings? It mostly you talk about the cars you're driving, right? But you know. Basically.
Well, we also talk about some of the the transportation news of the week. We do interviews with people in the industry from time to time. While we're on vacation, a couple of weeks back, we actually published a whole episode that was just interviews that we did at the New York Auto Show.
I listened to that one.
With executives from a bunch of different companies. So, and we answer listener questions as well. So if you want to send us questions about, what you should buy, or, if you have comments about some topic related to vehicles, feedback at wheelbearings.media, you can send it there, or, we've got a Discord as well. So we welcome the input from listeners.
And they talk about cars, and I talk about how cars hold cookies, because I like cookies. Yeah. So there's always an element of where the best place to stow cookies are in a car, because treats are important.
It is interesting how for so many years cars didn't have cup holders. Then they had dozens.
Yeah. These are important things. You have to talk about the stuff real people want. I don't care about the horsepower and the torque. Like, where am I going to put my coffee?
Lamborghini does not have a cup holder.
What?
Right. It does not have. The Lamborghini does not have a cup holder.
Does it have a cookie holder?
There's room for your phone.
Oh, good.
There's room for maybe another phone, and that's it.
Really?
That's it. It is just it. Yeah, that's it. Or you can put something in the glove compartment, but the little shelf behind you, there's a fire extinguisher because you're on the track. So yeah, there's
I think every car should have a fire extinguisher just to remind you.
That's actually not a bad idea.
Just in case. You never know what could happen.
Wow.
Important to be safe.
It's an interesting statement by Lamborghini. You never know what's going to happen.
If you're going on a track. If you're going on a track, you have to have a fire extinguisher anyway.
It's a race car. You have a race car, and you're driving on the street with it.
Yeah.
What could possibly go wrong?
No, I'm more worried about the cookies. The car can catch fire. I want a spot for my cookies.
Where do you put your cookies?
It depends on the car. Sometimes you have a little spot in the center console. They have this whole table in the F-150 that flips out, and you can
the F-150 you can get a kitchen built in, right?
Yeah, well that's what I want. You have you can put. I did a video of it. And I had it on. I have a site, The Road Reflected, and I do another podcast, and I did a whole thing about the cookie table that Ford calls a work table, and it's a misnomer. It's a cookie table.
It's a burrito table.
It's perfect for a box of crumble cookies.
It is. It holds a box of crumble cookies.
East Coast is cookies. West Coast burritos. That's how it breaks down. Like somewhere, I guess in Colorado, it probably is where the split is.
Do you find
if you're in Hawaii, you get a poke
split
bowl.
Is the more expensive the vehicle, the more likely it will have a cookie table, or is it the other way around?
More expensive vehicles have more storage spots. They do,
I just
like
want to
funky
point
things
out,
like tables and like little nooks and crannies and little shelves and things where you can put cookies.
Every single episode of The Road Reflected has food in the title.
It does. There's
Turkish
always
food,
something.
crumble cookies, donuts.
There's always. It's like
Canadian
car
pork
food.
Pie.
Yeah.
So is it a car podcast or a food podcast?
It's a car podcast, but at the end there's a treat. At the end there's a little bit of food.
Nicole just wanted to write off all of her treats. That's all she wanted. She wanted the tax write-off for all of her snacking.
This is a very
this podcast.
Very high concept podcast.
Food is important, Leo. You're lying if you don't say you think about the food you take on your road trip, man.
All the time.
Last fall, we went to Montana to drive the Jeep Grand Wagoneer L.
Yes.
And on we drove, out the drive route to a place where we stopped for lunch, and on the way back, we grabbed Jim Morrison, who's the head of not the one from The Doors, but he's the head of Jeep North America. And, because we were doing an interview with him in the car, in the SUV while we were driving. And of course, rather than going straight back to the hotel like we were supposed to, we did a little diversion. We found a Crumble Cookies in Bozeman and went there with Jim and bought a couple of boxes of cookies, most of which he took back to his wife.
He did.
Yeah, so it was great.
The man has a sweet tooth. It was easy to take him for cookies. And then Sam and I got cookies out of it. He's like, get some cookies, guys. See? I was ulterior motive. Free cookies.
And then at the New York Auto Show, I was interviewing Jim and Christian Mounier, who is the head of Jeep Global, the CEO of the Jeep brand. And Nicole, we had a scheduling conflict. So Nicole was interviewing somebody else at the same time. And they said, where's Nicole? And Jim said, where's Nicole? He said, I've got cookies for her. And so I told Nicole that she had to go find Jim later, and he actually had cookies for her.
He had a box of cookies. He brought them over to me, a box of really yummy cookies.
That's a good reputation.
I worked this.
And when
I like this reputation.
Are you so far north of New Hampshire that you're close to the Canadian border?
I'm not super close. I think I'm about 5 hours from Montreal. So maybe 4 hours from the border. Yeah,
But close enough to get Canadian pork pie? Right?
Yeah, because there's all sorts of French Canadians in Nashua, in the town that's near me. So New Hampshire has very large Canadian population, and all the, what do they always call them, mémères? The grandmothers, they always made Canadian pork pie, and you can get it at some places. It's good stuff if you never had it, Leo.
Sounding really, really good. I don't know if you noticed, but my name is Leo Laporte. I am French-Canadian from Montreal.
Well, see?
And I grew up in Rhode Island, which was there were 21 Leo Laportes in the phone book when I was a kid. It's a very big place for Canucks.
Okay.
And I am one. I are one, but I've never had Canadian pork pie. So now I'm feeling like
possible?
My national heritage requires.
My local bakery has them. You can get them at the bakery in town. They have that. You can
what makes it Canadian?
I don't know.
They probably use back bacon.
Oh, there you go.
It's not Canadian bacon. It's back bacon.
Back bacon.
Yeah.
I don't know, but that's what they always call it. They call it Canadian pork pie, and you find it on the menu all over the place.
See, I'd buy any car that had a Canadian pork pie hatch. That would be. What's in there? Pork pie.
I don't find that in the outside.
Yeah, that would work.
Robbie, I haven't seen you in so long. Roberto Baldwin. He writes about cars for a variety of publications, but better than that, if you're in the East Bay Area or anywhere in the Bay Area and you get a chance to see Robbie performing, is either Robots Are Real, or what are the other band names? Let's get all the band names out here.
So there's Robots After All. That's the Daft Punk
After
band.
All, Robots, as opposed to Humans After All, which is
Then there's Suburban Robots, which is the Devo band.
Oh, they're all robots. Okay.
There's North American Scum, which is the LCD Sound System and Talking Heads band.
Yeah.
And then there is the Becky Boys, which is the
Beastie Boys
and Beastie Boys band. And then finally there is Drastic Cats, which is the Originals band, which is just chaos. And go buy the Drastic Cats album because it's chaos.
It's
if you enjoy
Bandcamp.
chaos,
Yeah.
if you want to hear songs that sound like it was written and recorded in an hour, because they were, go ahead. It is
the
an art
Beatles
band.
and recorded a few songs. But wait a minute. Yeah. So it's the Beastie Boys, but it's Beastie Boys and
the Becky Boys.
The Becky Boys.
The
so
Becky Boys.
Last Train to I'm a Loser Baby or something like
sort
that.
Sort of, yeah. So it's Beastie Boys and Beck. Playing Beck is really fun. I mostly play bass and sing on that. Rapping is really tough.
It's hard.
That's what we were learning in this band.
That's good. That's good.
How tough it is to rap. So there's a bunch of shows that are coming up. Just look up those names. You'll find them.
Well, I'm so glad we could get you on, Rob. I miss having you on the show more often, but I understand you're a busy person with your many pursuits, but you're always
my 50 bands.
You're always welcome here at Twit. Next time, drive the Lambo up. That's what I want.
Next time I get a good car, I'll hit you up for.
And Nicole, next time you get a good pork pie, would you fly out and bring me a piece of that? That's looking good. Is that what it looks
like?
Stuff.
Is that what it looks like?
I've never mind. That looks different than what I get at the local bakery. I'll take a picture of the pork pie.
I'll eat that,
That's different. Yeah. That looks good, but that's not what it's good stuff. I'm telling you guys.
You had me at pork.
I had you pork.
Sam Abul-Samad, principal analyst at Guidehouse Insights, where he writes about cars and a lot of other stuff. He's also the host, the producer of Wheel Bearings at wheelbearings.media and joins us on a regular basis. Thank you, Sam, for bringing the gang together for us. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us, Leo.
Yes.
This has been a blast.
Always fun. Always fun. Yeah. We do Twit every Sunday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2100 UTC. Now, I only mention that because, normally people download it, but if you wanted to watch it happen live, you could. That's the time. And the way you would watch is going by to the website, twit.tv/live. There's audio and video there for your enjoyment. And if you're watching live, you might as well chat live with the folks who chat as they watch, either on our IRC at irc.twit.tv. All you need is a web browser, although you can use an IRC client because it's real IRC. Or if you're a Club Twit member and you want animated GIFs, you should probably go and sign up for Club Twit. There's a Discord associated with it. Oh, look, here is from newengland.com, a website. Thank you, Joe. To the Canadian.
I'm not crazy.
Oh,
this looks good.
Ma mère Rousseau's tourtière. That looks.
Might have to go to New Hampshire just for one.
Let's do the show in New Hampshire. I never thought I'd say that. I never thought I'd say that. Let's go to New Hampshire. After you watch, if you watch, you can download copies of the show whether you watch or not. Actually, that's the whole idea. It's a podcast, so go to twit.tv, download it there. There's a YouTube channel dedicated to the show. It takes us a couple of hours to edit it. Later tonight, it'll be up there. Actually, the best thing to do, so you don't even have to think about that, find a great podcast client, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Apple Podcasts, Google, whatever you use. Subscribe. That way you'll get the show the minute it's available. You don't have to think about it. You'll have it tomorrow for your commute or whatever, whenever you like to listen to it. There's even, by the way, there's special feeds like all the Twit shows. If you search for Twit, you find that. Subscribe, you get them all, and then you've got like this wonderful potpourri. It's like a pork pie for your ears of stuff, and you just listen at your leisure when you're in the mood. How about that?
Well, and Wheel Bearings is now available in YouTube Music podcasts. If for some reason you feel like you have to listen to podcasts in YouTube
Are we available in YouTube Music? I guess we probably are. Yeah, that's cool. I didn't even think of that.
You have to make a playlist and tag it as a podcast in YouTube Studio, and then it'll become a podcast in YouTube Music.
Well, if we aren't already, we're going to be by the end of this week. I can tell you right now. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Robbie. Thanks to all of you who watch. I hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Another Twit is in the can. Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye.